On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're visiting the homes of some imaginative and creative individuals who have mastered the art of decorating with one of design's most divisive colors, pink. First, we visit a Brooklyn loft where striking architecture meets whimsical design and unapologetic pops of pink. Then, we head to a dazzling, one-of-a-kind New York City home where every room bursts with expressive paintings, rich textures, and of course, plenty of pink flair. Next, we hop across the pond to London to a cozy flat filled with global treasures, curated art, and rose-hued rooms that create a warm and inviting atmosphere. From there, it's off to Los Angeles to step inside a pink dreamland filled with funky 80s memorabilia, Golden Girl-esque decor, and a carousel horse fondly named Priscilla. Finally, we head to a charming Toronto apartment brimming with character, clever DIY touches, and, yes, plenty of pink. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, welcome to my Brooklyn loft. Come on in. My name is Rachel Martino. I am a content creator based in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm also the founder of Dreamland Studios, which is where we are today. It's a production studio, photo studio out of my home, which is launching a second location very soon. This apartment is a loft apartment. The building is actually from 1901. It was originally a paint factory, which I think is so unique and interesting. I love loft style buildings. When you see people on TV in New York, they always live in these gorgeous lofts, which are actually pretty rare in New York. But you think of like Monica's apartment in Friends or Dan from Gossip Girl. They had these really cool loft style apartments. You think of Glee, all these shows that had lofts. And so I really wanted a loft apartment, and I found this one during the pandemic in May 2020. But when I found this place, it was just like a hidden gem. I was so excited. One thing I knew I wanted to do was do a pink door. I actually was considering doing purple since I love the show Friends, but I think this pink is like the perfect like pinkish purple. So it's like a mix of my love of Friends plus my love of pink. So I love the shade that I landed on here. So this is the main living space right when you walk into the apartment. And when I first moved in, I realized what a challenge it was gonna be to decorate such a large space. I'm used to smaller New York apartments, smaller furniture, so I knew I needed some help. I worked with an amazing interior designer named Megan Hopp. She really helped me kind of spatially plan the living area since it's so large. It's about 1,000 square feet just here in the middle. And I knew I wanted to do a really fun sofa. So I did this curved sectional in a blush pink, which I absolutely love. It's really cozy, but it's also just like such a statement piece. It's very feminine. In terms of the rug, did like this like kind of fun Moroccan style rug, which I really love. It adds a lot of light to the space. And then we do have a little mini couch for Mr. Taxi that matches the sofa. I saw this at Home Goods and I was obsessed. Do you want to sit on your couch? Come on. Yeah, sit on it. Taxi, come. Up. Good boy, sit. Good boy. Is that my nugget? Good boy.
This is the pink throne.
This is his pink throne, and I just love that it really matches the existing pink sofa that he has his own little spot. And then to add a little more furniture, I love these white boucle chairs. They're from Cardiel. A great place for people to sit. And I love that it kind of adds a little bit of lightness to the space.
Okay, I have to ask.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite color?
It's pink. I think it's pretty obvious. I love the color pink. Everything. It's hard for me not to buy everything that's just pink and to also embrace other colors, but I absolutely love pink. I just think it's fun and feminine. And one thing I love is like, I feel like pink just like brings women together. I feel like little girls love pink, but adult women love pink too. It's just like so fun, and it can be very chic as well. Before I moved in, it was just like very bare bones. Definitely a beautiful factory loft conversion. You see a lot of factory loft conversions in Williamsburg and Bushwick. Some are done better than others, but a beautiful loft conversion, but very bare bones, very industrial. You know, you have these exposed pipes, exposed beams, and I wanted to bring my own quirky, feminine, fun vibe to it, to such an industrial space. My interior design style, I never know exactly what to say. I think it's a little bit Art Deco, a little bit old Hollywood. I love color. I love pieces that are a little bit eclectic, but are still kind of chic and elevated. So I kind of mixed a lot of different styles and prints and colors, and that's just sort of me.
And you also don't shy away from disco balls.
No, I love disco balls. There's, I think, 4 different disco balls in the space. I love the way that they bounce off light, and they just seem fun. I think for me, a lot of the spaces I lived in before, I didn't really let my personality shine through. I thought, oh, it's supposed to be beige or it's supposed to be mid-century. Those were the trends that I was seeing, and not really embracing who I was. And I think the moment I just decided to choose pieces that reflected me and my crazy self, then I felt so much more at home and happy with my space. I fell in love with cane cabinetry. It's really on trend right now, and I just think it adds a lot of light. But most cane cabinets are super expensive, but I actually found this is an IKEA hack. So the base cabinets are the IKEA Besta, but the doors are from a brand called Norse Interiors that makes door fronts for IKEA furniture. And I mean, altogether, it was maybe $1,000 as opposed to the units I was looking at were over $2,000 just for one. So we have this, and it spans all the way across. It was hard to design around this beam, so I thought that having 2 units here would kind of balance it out. And it's a great place to hide, all of your cords and electronics. So I'm someone who kills every plant that they come into contact with, and I respect and love everybody who has such a green thumb, but I do not. So I have a ton of dried florals in this space, and all the dried florals are from my friend Kelsey at East Olivia. She has an incredible company with beautiful pompous florals, dried florals, and they look good always. Like, you don't have to water it, they look great, and of course they're pink, so I love them. So one thing I knew I wanted to do with the space was create a amazing dining area and bar. I love entertaining and having my friends over, and especially post-pandemic, it just feels like it's so fun to have people in your home instead of going out as much. So the first thing I found was this amazing, it's almost 11 feet long, table. I love that it has a live edge, so it's kind of more of a organic feel to the table. It's actually from CB2, but I found it on Apartment Deco, which is one of my favorite sites to find secondhand pieces. I also wanted to do these really fun rainbow chairs. It was like a treasure hunt to find all the colors of these are the Anthropologie Elowin chairs. And they were so back ordered on the site. A lot of them I found from the Anthropologie outlet in Pittsburgh, but there were certain colors I couldn't find. So like this yellow chair, I convinced a woman in California to send it to me. A lot of my followers helped me. They looked on their local Craigslist, because again, Craigslist, you only look in your area. So they would look in their area to see if they could find the yellow Elowin, and I convinced a woman in California to ship me hers. I feel like the shipping was almost as much as the chair, but it was worth it. I love the yellow chair. And then here we have the gorgeous bar. This is actually a local New York seller. It's called Soil and Oak, and I've loved their bars for a really long time. I've always wanted to do one, and it's really sturdy glass and pipe, which I feel like gives it kind of goes back to that industrial feel of the space overall, but also it's like very glam, kind of old Hollywood, which is what I wanted to do with the bar. And I love this wallpaper. It's from House of Hackney, which is a British wallpaper company. So when I moved in, I was like, why is there this huge mirror? It spanned all the way, but not all the way to the door, just like the majority of the wall. So the first thing I knew I wanted to do was add another mirror panel to the end to make it the entirety of the wall. But I found out that this space was actually a dance studio, which makes perfect sense to have this gorgeous mirrored wall. It helps to reflect the light too that comes in. So now we're heading into the kitchen. This space I didn't do almost anything to. It was already a very, very beautiful kitchen, which is such a hard thing to find in New York, to have a beautiful, spacious kitchen. So I'm very grateful that they did such a nice renovation. It is all IKEA, but I think they did an excellent job with the kitchen. These were previously windows, but because they built a building next door a few years ago, they had to brick these over. But I do like that they used brick. It does kind of add that industrial element back in. It has that very New York feel. The only thing I really changed in the kitchen was this light fixture, which I realized one of the lights is out, but it's this like fun fixture. It's actually called the Happy Light from a really cool designer. I just thought it kind of added this fun element to the kitchen, and then I did a washable rug to add a pop of color. So with this space, there was so much more livable area, so I wanted to create, I kind of call it like the reading nook, so we have a little bit more furniture, the fun yellow couch. Of course, I love my swing chair. I knew I wanted a swing chair, and it's such a fun place to sit. I call this his like circus podium, this pink ottoman. He definitely thinks of it as his own, and it's where I'll do tricks with him. So let's practice if you will. You're already sitting, that's a good boy. Okay, shake, good boy, shake. Shake. Good boy. So the one thing I did change in this space too was the light fixture. It was this very bizarre antler light fixture, not real antlers, but like a faux plastic antlers. It was really bizarre, but a lot of people online were like, don't get rid of it, but I fell in love with this fixture, which is like, kind of gives me like candelabra, beautiful vibes. I love this one so much. And I love this like gorgeous orange sofa. I love the color orange, so this I think is one of my favorite pieces and where you find me sitting a lot of time and working on my laptop. I also have this gorgeous primrose mirror. It's 7 feet and it's super wide. I love this mirror. It's just so gorgeous. It looks vintage, but it is from Anthropology. But it's such a nice piece, and everyone is always taking pictures of this mirror, including myself, of course. So something that's funny is the space is so big, but the bedroom is actually very small, but I love it. I think it gives it like a really fun, cozy feeling. And it's very white. It has whitewashed brick as opposed to the traditional brick you see elsewhere in the space. And I just love it. It feels very cozy. I tried to keep it a little bit more neutral than the rest of the space, as much as I wanted it to be a full rainbow bedroom. So it's kind of this beautiful oasis. And I have like a little setup here where I sometimes do my makeup and get dressed. And then you have these gorgeous windows. It just gets such beautiful light in here, and I can spy on my neighbors. It's definitely set up right now for Valentine's Day. I love any theme. I love a theme. So I do a lot of decoration around different times of the year. So I have a lot of heart-shaped and pink and red decor right now. I absolutely love these shoes. They're from a Peruvian designer called Jessica Butrich, and she has the most incredible collection of shoes. A lot of like really crazy platforms and just like really fun designs. And to me, like these shoes, I've had them for several years and I'll never get rid of them. They're the best. In the bedroom, I do have some personal pieces. So like this is a picture of my family. This is, I think I'm like 11 in this picture. I think we're in like South Carolina, but I love the very all-American portrait with the white tops and the jeans. And I also have this. This is really special to me. It's a picture of my grandparents who have since left us, but on their wedding day in the 50s. So I keep this on my bed. I just think it's so beautiful, and it has such a rich history, and I miss them. So if you follow me, you're probably wondering where all of my dresses and clothes are stored. And I have a little secret. I have a Monica closet. So this is a huge double walk-in closet, but it's always an absolute mess. So we don't talk about this, but this is where all the clothes, all the decorations, everything is secretly hidden in here. Through this way, we'll go into the studio. So this was definitely what attracted me the most about living here, was having this big open space to create content and to set up as a traditional photo studio, which is actually what it was with the previous tenant. And the first thing I knew I wanted to do was do a huge bookcase installation. So I worked with a friend of mine who is a carpenter. To save cost, we actually did the lowers as IKEA cabinets. They're not custom. These are the Havsta cabinets, which helps save a lot on the budget. And then the rest of the shelves are custom, and I just love them. The color is from Backdrop, which is one of my favorite paint brands. It's called 36 Hours in Marrakesh, because I wanted to do something that was a very sophisticated pink. I feel like this is kind of like a nice terracotta pink. And I love styling these shelves. They constantly change. Always different decor pieces depending on the time of year, but it's a lot of fun to style them. We've had some incredible clients. We've had Macy's, Comedy Central, Google, Limited 2, that was one of my favorites, Adore Me, and it's so fun to see how different brands and creators utilize the space for their photo shoots. And if you want to book, you can book on peerspace.com. I would say after the bookshelves, my second favorite spot in here is the vanity station. So I went with this gorgeous wallpaper that I absolutely love. My designer Megan found it. I knew I wanted lips, and this wallpaper is so unique. It just feels like its own art piece. It's from a brand called Voutsa, V-O-U-T-S-A, I believe. And this is actually where I sit every morning and put on my makeup at this vanity. I love the process of getting ready. I think it just like calms me. It's my morning ritual. Have my coffee and get ready. And having this beautiful Art Deco wallpaper and just like sitting and enjoying this moment is my favorite part of the day.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Vivian, and this is my townhouse in New York. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Vivian Reese, and I'm an artist. And here we are in my townhome in New York City. I grew up in New York on the Upper West Side, and I went to school, elementary school, between Amsterdam and Columbus on 89th Street. And I'd look across the street and see these old rundown houses and would dream, I wish I could buy one. I wish I could have bought one then, because it would have been a lot less expensive than what one paid in the 2000s. But so it's been my lifelong dream to own a townhouse in New York. I lived in Toronto for many years. I've renovated over 40 houses. And when I decided to come back to New York, my place of my heart, I really wanted a townhouse. So I started to look. There was a carriage house that I loved that was in this neighborhood. And every night I would dream of it, and it kept me going. But as soon as I had the money to do it, it had been sold. So I said, okay, let's get back up on the horse and let's look at houses. And I had walked by this house like the day before I saw it, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. My son had also looked at listings and said, you should look at this house. And then my agent said, well, we are looking at this house. So when I walked in, it was nothing like it is today. It was a very bizarre house, but it's kind of a philosophy. The worse it is, the better I can make it. And so voila, you're in my home of today. We are in the first room of my townhouse, the foyer, and this is where people enter and are welcome to my home. So I hope that this is a very welcoming space. Right here is a chandelier from Murano. It's from about 1840. And before I was born, they made colors like this, and now I fill the whole world with colors like this. So as we walk around the room, I'll introduce you to some of my art. This is a self-portrait I did. I think it was the last portrait I did in my old house of my garden. I was in the avant-garde of urban farming, and I used to have about 150 different edibles in my garden. It was in the front yard and on the boulevard. So you could say I was in the avant-garde of guerrilla gardening as well. This is a project, this is one portrait I did for a project in Japan, where it was for a huge triennial, but I lived in a tiny village of 150 inhabitants, and I did 18 portraits, and they were shown in a show where millions of people came. I lived in the ex-school teacher's house because there were no children anymore, so they closed the school. My studio was in the schoolroom, in the music room, and slowly but surely I got the village to open up and pose for me for these beautiful portraits. The idea was the project was, it was Satayama, which means man's relation or women's relationship to the land. And I said, well, you know, they used to have kiri, which are storehouses for grain, but now really what we need is storehouses for the wonderful people who live in these abandoned towns. So this is one of my subjects. Most of them I did in the studio, but she wanted to do it outside. She was probably about 91 and lived with her husband. She loved irises. And in Japan, the irises bloom all summer, not just in the spring. And you can see here I am in her garden. And this is the way I start every painting. with a drawing on canvas. This is a painting I did for a show I did at the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. It was in the restaurant. Jamie Kennedy is a famous Canadian chef, and he was in the beginning of the farm-to-table movement. And so all of the paintings had to do with food. There was performance, a mezzo-soprano, a pianist, and it was all centered around food. And she represents Donovan's saffron. So saffron as an herb, the electrical bananas, the tea, the lemons, all the things that are talked about in the song, Saffron. People ask me, where do I get inspiration? And they think like inspiration is a bolt of lightning. I always say, get to work and you'll find inspiration, because there's inspiration everywhere you look. But if you don't start doing it, there's no paintings. There's nothing to share with the world. Creativity kind of wells from inside. It's like breathing. You can't help it. It's a way of living. So is it the most personal? You are a person and it comes from you, but creativity is a force. And so the force is like a conversation between you and the world and you. And if it's a portrait, between you and your subject, the subject and you, and then the third person enters who sees it as a painting. So these chairs were in my house in Toronto, and by the time they arrived here, the upholstery was not in the best condition, and I renovated the house. I got tired, and I'm like, I collect textiles. Why don't I just throw all kinds of textiles on the chairs, and then I don't have to send them out? And so that's what I did. This table I love because in my old house I had a floor that was a mosaic that I made of many pieces of stone that I got from the marble yard. I said, give me all your scraps. And I made this beautiful patchwork. I had one piece left, this piece of onyx, and it broke in transit. And I had these two plexiglass bases that I'd bought at a flea market, you know, because you never know what might come in handy sometime. And so I just took the broken pieces and put it on it, and I love it. It's just such an unusual coffee table. The porcelain that you see up there and the glass came from my great-grandfather's store. He had a glass and porcelain store in Budapest. On the side, those palettes, I never throw away my palettes. I never wash the paint off. They just pile up, and then eventually it gets too heavy, and I get a new palette. So these are two old ones. These lamps I love. They're 70s lamps. You'll see as you go through the house, I must have a thing for pink lights. So these are two pink lights, and I bought them at a flea market, and I had gotten there by 10 o'clock, and I couldn't believe that nobody had bought them. Even I thought, like at 6 o'clock, somebody would wake up and buy these two marvelous 70s plastic, actually, lights. The painting I did is of a farm that raises sheep. They're vegetarians, so they don't eat them. They're just pet sheep. And I went there many times, and the sheep never pose, but they have a curiosity, and they would come up and they'd start licking my canvas and wanted to be petted. So I love doing these animal scenes. So these mirrored cabinets, I bought them from a house where people had collected so much stuff. They love porcelain, and they're actually French from the 1700s. And this I bought at a flea market. I love porcelain that's in the shape of things that are not porcelain, so hence the strawberries. These are beautiful painted Japanese tea set. You'll see more of it up there. And these two little pieces are also from my great-grandfather. So when I bought this house, this room was all paneled wood, not beautiful paneling, like sauna paneling, and it was on a diagonal. When I pulled it off the wall, they'd put it on with a lot of glue, and so I had like these amazing gluey strips, which did not look good. The ceiling was a popcorn ceiling, so I had to put a new ceiling on it. But wherever there was plaster, I preserved the plaster. I used like a plaster mesh that you put on, and then you apply plaster just like in the old days. The crown molding, that's the original molding that was here. And I painted it in all these beautiful colors. I think that really gives the room the excitement, the warmth. It's like entering into the palace of candy. So now we're leaving the foyer and coming into the main space of the house. This is, I guess you call, the second hallway. And I think one of the things that also attracted me to the house is this magnificent staircase. It wasn't original to the house. This house was built in 1850. It was a pretty plain house because it was a spec house. The speculator went broke, somebody else bought it, and in the late 1800s, Herman Melville's brother bought it. Fast forward to 1900, where the neighborhood became much more expensive, and also people were much more interested in classical architecture. And so hence you'll see the lotus and the egg and dart, all these things that are classical. So I bought this in Mumbai, and I loved it. I always wanted one of these fountains. I didn't know where it was going to go because I had it in the backyard, in my, not used, just stored in the backyard, in the basement, in a garage. And when I moved to New York, I kind of built this room around it. It was already a beautiful room, but there was a wall here. And you entered kind of to the basement to a warren of rooms. And I just wanted to open it up so that people could see the beautiful round of the whole thing. And so I built the stairs to go round because I also wanted people to enter the kitchen and see the garden, not look at a wall where it had been in the previous house. But of course, you know, there was a butler's pantry, and it was a whole different layout of a house where you lived with a lot of help. Right now, I'm the help, so I could take over the whole space. I also have to clean the whole space, but that's the joy of having a home. This is another self-portrait I did in my garden in Toronto. And actually, the dress I was wearing is a dress I designed to wear to my daughter's wedding. In the old adage, you can never be too young or too thin or too this or too that. You have freedom to do it when you do your self-portrait. I never really thought what goes into my mind. I think I put myself in my portraits in different situations. So my portrait becomes still life, landscape, and all the subjects that I use in my paintings. The first room that I saw when I entered the house was this room, and it was a square room, and something about it, the proportions, I just loved it. But it was covered with brown cedar stripping. The whole house was like a giant sauna. It was very dark, very bizarre. On the first floor, there were huge, big, very ugly pink tiles. As you see, I have nothing against pink because most of my house is pink, but it was not the kind of pink you could fall in love with. And so it was a very dark house, and what I needed to do is give it flow and light. So I have a background as a dancer. My second love after painting is dancing, and you'll see all my paintings are infused with movement and joy and everything that comes from dancing. So when I approach an architectural project, I see what it feels like in my body. I want people to feel comfortable as they walk room to room. And so that's how I create a flow. It's not by doing one color, because you'll see every room in the house is a different color. It's the way the space feels to you. And I had to make the space feel in a way that you could just flow through and feel great. No matter how elegant and fancy the house is, everybody just feels welcome and happy the minute they walk in the door. If I was a wonderful mezzo-soprano, which I'm not, I would stand here and sing my heart out. But in the meantime, come on into my dining room. Now we're entering the dining room, and this is the one room that wasn't ruined by cedar stripping all the way around. This was created in 1900, like I said, that at that time people were much more into classical. And every home needed one of these beautiful paneled dining rooms. You'll see it at the Frick, at the Morgan, at the Cooper Hewitt. This is a mini version of it. But even they must have been stock components, because I've seen some of these components in those houses as well. So the ceiling was original to the 1900. I just had to put my stamp on it. Of course, it was in terrible condition, but I had to paint it probably about 12 different colors. And luckily, I found a painter who could remember each of my colorways, because I can't. I have no color memory at all. So when they were creating all of this beautiful paneling, they also created a sideboard that has the same elements in it. You see the dental, which is also a Greek thing. Here's the egg and dart. So you'll see these components of the rest of the room in this sideboard. So when I bought it, the agent said, well, the first thing you have to do is take the sideboard out. And I'm like, no, this is part of the room. It would have been nice to be able to hang a big painting here, but you know, you have to compromise sometimes on design. And so you get one of my wonderful rooster paintings and chickens in the hen house, and flanked by two portraits and paintings of my garden. I think that having paintings in a dining room just bring it to life and actually give you an appetite for life. One thing I need to tell you is about this dining room table that I made. You kind of look at it and maybe it doesn't make sense, but what I'm going to tell you, this is a roast chicken. So here you see its tail, its body, its poor decapitated neck, and here you'll see there's the drumstick. And if you move over just here, you get to see the wing. These rolling chairs are kind of chicken themed because I wanted this to be like, this material is like a nest. So it's a little bit ovoid, but not exactly. I just woke up this one morning and had the idea that I'd like a roast chicken shaped table. And so my carpenter and I made it. So this is a series that my son did. It's a beautiful, evocative of flowers on a table and a person coming in the early morning light to look at it. I created this spiral staircase to go around the fountain, and I love the idea of round rather than just going straight. As you'll see, my staircase is rounded going up the whole house. And sometimes it's difficult when you're trying to add on something and change to make it so that it seems like it's not awkward. Either like it was always there or this is a new interpretation of it. So I would say this staircase is a new interpretation of the rest of my beautiful Art Nouveau staircase. Here we are in the kitchen, the beating heart of my house. I think kitchens are usually the beating heart of people's houses because it's where people love to gather. And so I have all kinds of parties in here. I have this huge, big island, so I can put out all kinds of food. I love to cook. I've cooked since I was a little child. You'll see here my collection of miniatures kitchens. Well, that was my original miniature kitchen. And I fell in love with cooking when I was about 5 years old. I always used to beg my mother, give me something that I can put in my miniature kitchen. And she gave me little alphabet noodles, and I put them in a pot, and I put water in it. And the next morning, they were like cooked noodles, and I'm like, this is magic. And so that set me off on a lifelong passion for cooking. And I love to nurture. I love to feed people. I love to make people feel good. And so food is a wonderful way of bringing people together. But that's kind of an obvious sentiment. But it's great. This is my love. This is my kitchen. This is I created myself. What's unusual about this kitchen is in contemporary homes, they want kitchens to look like they're not kitchens. Like in Victorian times, everything was disparate. There was no like fitted cabinets. But I wanted kind of a hybrid between a fitted cabinet and really having appliances. So I really wanted a stove that looks like a stove. I didn't want a stove that disappeared into the woodwork, so to speak. My dishwashers, I covered with some of my food paintings. So this is actually my palette. So you see all the paint on it. And then beautiful things from my hascap berries, radishes, all kinds of things, onions that I had picked from my garden. The freezer is another photograph that I took. I have kiwi vines here. They haven't given me kiwis. Maybe I got 2 this year. But I used to have abundant kiwis, and I created kiwi ice cream because the blossoms have this wonderful taste. So this I thought was appropriate for the freezer. On this dishwasher is honey in the garden. So we have all these beautiful tomatoes I grew and edible flowers on the grass. And I think the most innovative part is the fridge. So when I first bought the house, it had a very old glass like refrigerator, commercial refrigerator where you could see in the shelves. I mean, it was very old and decrepit and moldy and whatever. But I thought, okay, I'm not so organized and neat that I could have a glass-fronted fridge and you'd see all the contents. But I'm an artist. I can paint what's inside of my fridge and put it on my fridge. So this is like an enduring view of my fridge with all the kind of great party foods, lobsters, cakes, eggs, chops, cans, maple syrup, fruits, vegetables. Here it is for everyone to admire. So I had a dream for my countertop that I wanted to cover it with my food photographs, because there were about 5 years where in the summer I got up at 5 o'clock every morning, picked something from the garden, thought of a recipe, cooked it, styled it on my multitude of plates, and then photographed it just as the early morning light was coming on. So it was a beautiful, like, animated light. And somehow, through my drive, and I needed to have it done, I figured out how to have this manufactured. So when I bought the house, the kitchen was as bizarre as the rest of the house. It was black and white tiles, but little insets of like other things. These people actually thought they were artists, but it was just terrible. It was like you needed sunglasses when you came here, and not because it was so light. And also the floor was at kind of the level here. So my first job in doing the house is getting rid of the warren of rooms that were here, because there used to be, not in the time I bought it, but originally in 1900 they had constructed a servant's dining room, a wine cellar, a cold cellar for jams and things like that. They had a bicycle room as well. But then in the 70s, when these people renovated again, it was just like little warrens of rooms. So the first thing I did is I dug down 3.5 feet to make this beautiful high ceiling, which just gives the room such warmth and light. And these are the original beams of the house. These are the 1850 beams. And I also had this idea that I would strip the walls. So the first were the black and white op art kind of tiles. Then came the 1900 renovation, which was subway tiles. Who knew that subway tiles is what they used in the 1900s, early 1900s? And then I came to the foundations, which you'll see sparkle, which is Manhattan's schist, which is what we all stand on in this beautiful island. The paintings that I chose for this room are all food themed. So yes, the chickens and the eggs, and this one has some Brussels sprouts and pumpkins. Over there you'll see when it was rose season and rhubarb season, I created rose rhubarb ice cream. That's my Danvier ice cream maker, which I still have and pull out at most dinner parties, and people have to crank and make ice cream. And there were jam tarts, and this was in my old kitchen. So this was my mother's, and she bought it in Florida in the 1970s. And I always say, well, the kitchen was black and white because that was a style in the 1970s. But my mother had beautiful taste, and I love this Italian break front. So when I bought the house, they had just like, well, you know, the floor was here, and there were 2 sliding doors. And my idea was I just wanted to have an open house. So I had these doors made in Canada. They're teak. And it's very cold. We're in winter here in New York. But it takes me about 3 minutes to open up the entire wall. And so it's an indoor-outdoor space, which is quite unusual for the city. So I dug down in the basement, in the garden as well. It was always a 2-leveled garden. But originally there was a big, huge cement staircase that came almost to the door, and a fire escape from the first dining room out to there. But since it's a single family house now and it's sprinklered, I don't need that anymore to have a fire escape. So it was like just such a mess, this garden. And so I went to Philadelphia, which is like a paradise of salvage. And I bought this fencing. It was not in the form it is now, but somehow I had this feeling that I could make this work. And during the pandemic, when a lot of people were out of work because they were not allowed to work, I had iron welders from the airport come, and they put the ironwork together. So what's interesting is that little piece up there, I needed it because there's a staircase that goes up behind. I needed it to make the stair high enough, and I had just one little piece left, which I put over my fireplace. I had done a few events where I did hearth cooking, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to have a hearth in my home that I could cook on? And as I said, this was kind of the hearth height anyway, so this works out perfectly because you can cook in it and it's just the right height. You don't have to bend down. So you remember upstairs by the fountain, I said there used to be a wall. This was the wainscoting for the wall. And I just turned it right side up and I made a door because I wanted something that pulled the house together, and this was just perfect for doing that. So enter into my garden powder room. So as you see, there's like many themes inside my house. So I had created this lamp for my old gallery in Toronto, which I brought here. I had actually bought the lamp at the Bronx Botanical Garden, and I turned it into a light fixture. I mean, lamp, no, that's a watering can. It's not a lamp. The watering can, this beautiful apple picking ladder I actually found on the street. This sink, I bought at Brimfield. It's from Hungary, and it's actually for kneading dough. And I came up with this idea that it had to float here. So you'll see little garden implements, and also, you know, it's rustic because of the schist wall. And the floor is interesting too, because in one bathroom in the house that I ripped apart, there was a plastic shower, and when I took the plastic shower out, it had solid marble walls. So one of the walls is my garden table that you saw right outside the kitchen door. And the other one I just broke up because actually they were really heavy, and the only way to maneuver them was by breaking it up. But I wanted it to be like a garden path. So this is my garden bathroom. So in this hallway, my miniature kitchen theme continues. This is a miniature cabinet that actually was my daughter's, would play with. And now her daughter plays with it. She loves all of these miniatures. This little kitchen came from Paris. It folds up because I couldn't bring a big kitchen from Paris, so I brought a little miniature kitchen. And this was a painting of my old kitchen, and I call it the artist's birthday. You see the birthday cake, the music, the crabs on the floor, the coffee being made, all of the animals and food and everything is alive. Even the bubbles in the sink are exciting. And I love these 3 paintings. This is a series by my son Joel Garten. This is beautiful oil pastels on paper. And I just love this collection. Here we have my elevator, a wonderful convenience for my house. I try not to use it except if I'm carrying something heavy because I like to stay in shape. But the story of the elevator, I think this was the hardest structural thing to do in the house because you have to have it made out of I-beams. It's like building a skyscraper within your house because the shaft can't move at all. So I had welders, and this big steel came in And then you have to have it double drywalled, and there can't be one tiny hole. So everything has to be fireproof. So it was really an exciting adventure and something new to learn, how to put in a residential elevator. But it'll be here in 1 minute. It's hydraulic, it's not electric, so they have pistons and it runs very smoothly and quietly. It's really a marvel, and I can't believe that I have an elevator, let alone a staircase. Okay, I'm going for a ride. See you later. People often ask me how long I've been an artist, and I say, I think I came out of the womb with a paintbrush in my hand. So I've always been doing creative things. As a child, I danced, I made things, I played musical instruments, I, made dollhouse furniture, clothing for my dolls, like the whole gamut of cooking. I love cooking, the whole gamut of creativity. So every day I wake up and I say, how can I make the world more beautiful today? And that has really been my career path. I've been an artist all my life, and I've created beautiful spaces since my early 20s. Well, we've taken the long ride up to the 4th floor. Welcome to my studio. So this is my studio. This is where I paint, and people ask me, do I paint every day? I paint a lot here. As you'll see, I have volumes of work. I'm constantly thinking of new ideas, my passions, my people I know, people that I don't know that become close friends from posing for me. This is where it happens. I've had an over 40-year career in art with over 51 women shows all around the world. I have collectors in so many countries. I have so many people that I honor that I have met them, that they collect my work, they become friends. It's an explosive experience and also a very intimate experience. I love doing portraits because being an artist is a little bit lonely, and it's wonderful to get people into the studio, and it's a wonderful conversation. It's non-threatening. I love doing portraits. We really get to know each other because it really is a dialogue between the sitter and myself and the sitter. So I always ask my subjects to bring something of importance for them. So it becomes kind of a touchstone for the painting, and it enters into the vocabulary of the painting, the composition of the painting. So for example, this is one that I just finished. This is of Omri, who's one of my dance teachers, and he actually brought 3 objects. He brought a spool of red thread. He brought a big stuffed lion because he's a Leo, and a sculpture that he had made in high school. And he wore a sweater that his mother made. So it's really a very beautiful, intimate portrait of a wonderful human being, a very deep thinker, and a very beautiful mover. This is Gordie Johnson. As an object, he brought his double custom-made bass, and he lives in Austin now, and I guess it's prescient that he was wearing red cowboy boots in this particular painting. This is my family, part of my family. This is my daughter, my grandson, and my granddaughter. They were here just during the holidays, so this is a very recent work. And yeah, the kids don't stay too still, but it's like, you don't need to stay stock still in my paintings. I welcome people to move around, because actually, as you move around, you become more yourself. You become in the position that you usually take. The face is the last thing I paint, because all of you is also in your movement about how you hold yourself. A lot of paintings, as I say, the face is the last thing, and people come to my studio and say, oh, hi, that's so-and-so, because they can tell right away that it's them, even without the face. So maybe the eyes are not the portal to the soul. Your whole being is your portal to your soul. This is part of my still life series. Before I went to Japan, I really had to do that huge job of 18 portraits in 2.5 months. So I did a quick series of still lifes. And so these are my different toys, my Koopy dolls. I guess this one is mainly Cupid dolls. But it's all about the composition. Like in still lifes, you really get to think about composition in a different way because the things are not moving. And as you use the same objects over and over again, it's not like you have to depict the object. You already know how to depict the object, how to draw it. And so it gives you a different kind of freedom to create new compositions. This is also a portrait of my family. My cousin Valerie von Sobel came to visit, and she didn't give me a lot of time, but she's an amazing dresser, and she was wearing, this is not made up, everything, the butterflies, it was kind of a piece of face jewelry that she was wearing. And this is my daughter, and this is my granddaughter. And this little dog was not here, but my cousin always has dachshunds, so I had to include that in the painting. This is a painting of my garden in Toronto. It's a diptych. It's 2 panels. And I loved to have enormous things in my garden. So this is a giant taro that I had, and I planted them year after year. It was unusual to have something so tropical in a garden in Canada. And as you see, my aesthetic of my garden, there's Swiss chard, there's tomatoes, there's nasturtiums, there are eggplants. Everything is growing in a kind of harmony. There's no hierarchy of what's more beautiful than other things in a garden. Everything that grows is beautiful. If you look at the way I would create my garden every year, I'd start with a blank canvas. I didn't have a lot, except for my roses, I did not have perennials. So the soil was like a blank canvas. And then you kind of place things on the soil that you think will look good. And as it grows, you kind of groom it in a way that you want its composition. And of course the energy, and also that you can't plan everything. Like gardens have serendipity to it. Paintings have serendipity to it. And what the artist's role is to make sense of the serendipity. Artists kind of recreate the world, reshape the world. It's like science. We're trying to understand how the world is put together. And that's what composition is, and color, and movement, and plasticity, and all the things that happen on a very flat surface. So I've been doing a lot of portraits, and I've done a few self-portraits. And so I thought, I found a box in the basement with all my old still life objects. And I said, it's time to start doing a still life. And so I've done, kind of moved into a bigger still life format that I used. And I put up my old bears. I bought these all at a flea market in Budapest. I think they're German wind-up toys. Usually I have my subject sitting here, my human subject, but today I have some inanimate subjects here. And I lined up that, and I did it differently than I used to do still lifes. Usually I'd put them on a table. But now I feel like I know the objects well enough that they can go on different planes. So there's this plane, and then things sitting on the floor, and of course, things at different perspectives that don't exist in real life. But that's the story of early 20th century art, and also Japanese art, where you play with the perspectives. People are always fascinated by my palette and my paints, and they can't really understand this organization. But at art school, you're taught to clean your palette every day and scrape off all the paint and start again. And I always thought, what a waste of paint, because oil paint stays viable for quite a long time. Sometimes you have to poke underneath it. But also, the paint is laid out in a logical pattern. And to me, to start every day to do this logic is like, it interferes with actually getting to work. You have to think about something else. And I keep on getting more and more colors. Somehow, when I look at them, I know from the outside what the colors are. It's just an instinct that I know what's what. I mean, I do have them a little bit organized in some other places, but mainly it's in this jumble of wonderfulness and color. Is it necessary for people to go to art school to do art? No, I don't think so at all. As a matter of fact, I followed a career path where I went to the kind of the high school where they wanted you to go to Yale or Vassar or any of those. And I felt like I really didn't want to learn how to do art in an academic setting. So I actually did go to art school. I went to the Boston Museum School, which was the top-rated art school in the country at that time. But I stayed there a year, and then I actually just then apprenticed with 2 artists in their studio. And that's really how I learned how to paint, but not just how to paint, like how to set up shows, how to live the life of an artist. So is it necessary? No, my son never went to art school, and he does these amazing paintings. He collects a lot of self-taught Southern art. I also have quite a bit of the Souls Run Deep artists. So do you need to go to art school? No. I mean, art was created from like cave art. You go into the caves in France, and the art is so beautiful it can make you cry. Maybe, I don't think that they were done by just anybody. I think those were the artists of the time. How did they learn? They apprenticed each other. They knew how to make the pigments, how to apply them. Those kind of technical things are things that you learn in art school, but technique is really not that important. Everybody finds a technique that works for them. What's really, truly important is expression. And no school can teach you how to really express yourself as an artist. When I originally bought this house, this was a really dark space. It was a warren of tiny little rooms with, again, all that cedar stripping. I think the diamond stripping was about here. And I knew I had to do something this was not going to be a studio because I love light. I only paint during the day. I can't paint by artificial light. So I started by just taking down wall after wall after wall, and taking down the ceiling too, so that I have these exposed beams and a higher ceiling. And as you see, my dining room is so ornate and old-fashioned, and I'm so lucky I get to create all these different kinds of spaces because I have that formal dining room, and here I have a New York loft. White, exposed brick. It's paradise. So welcome to the studio bathroom. So I wanted this room to be kind of more fun. My first inspiration for this room is I walked into a bath store and I saw these knobs. And I just love these red knobs. And I thought, wow, okay, I need that for my bathroom. And for that, I had taken down the ceiling. The skylight was original to the house. And so red and white ceiling, bathtub. I need a red bathtub. And I love scallops. So I had these custom made in California, these scallop tiles. And then, wow, I needed a scalloped chandelier, which is mother of pearl. I think they're made in the Philippines. And I love this mirror. It's so different than the rest, but it's also quite the same because like these knobs make flowers and there's the flowers up here. And actually there was a niche here, not as symmetrical because it's part of the fireplace of the house next door. So I made these shelves for my toy boats. As you see, I love toys. This actually was the original ladder to the roof. It was in a different corner. It was at the top of the stairs. It was like you had to squeeze yourself through a hole like this to get to the roof. So I made it my towel bar. This is an antique from Saskatchewan. This is what I keep my toiletries in. Rooster painting, of course. And one of my old palettes. Practically every room needs one of those. Right off the studio is my guest room. And actually, the room I hid out in when I was renovating the house. So this room had much thinner cedar stripping. It was like a cedar closet in here. And I decided, actually in this room, it would be fun just to paint it all white. So I have like my little summer cottage up here. So I painted it white. I put in the crown molding, which of course makes every room better. And it had a pine floor, and I'm like, I need a blue floor. I absolutely need a blue floor. And so it is. This armoire I had made in Toronto, and it's artist themed because you see their paintbrushes here. And those monkeys used to sit on top of the cabinet. They were part of the cabinet, but the ceiling is too low, so I put them on the wall. These are monkey paintings. When I did my project in Japan, on my spare time, I'd go see the monkeys that swim in the hot springs. And I did many paintings of them. And as wild as they were, sometimes they would actually pose for me. I love monkeys, as you see, there's monkey theme. And also, my son, when he comes to New York, he uses my studio, and he creates tons of beautiful art. They're just like flow from his soul. He's such an amazing artist, and his main métier is he's a composer on the piano. He does improvs, very passionate, very interesting. Like, you're always at the edge of your seat. What is happening next? And I think it's reflected in his paintings as well. So these strawberries were kind of a window display in a department store that went defunct. And I knew I had to have them. I waited till midnight till it came up in the auction when I finally bought them. And these wonderful heart-shaped things, I've had them for so long. I don't know what they are, but they look like the same technique as toilet covers. But of course, you don't have heart-shaped toilet seats. But I bought them at the flea market in Thailand, in Bangkok, and I've loved them ever since. They followed me everywhere. This is where I dream my dreams, and every day I wake up in a garden. So we talked about my garden series in my studio. This was a passion of mine, my garden. Every year I would plant it, and not only would I plant it and enjoy it, and the public would enjoy it, but it would smell delicious. It would taste delicious. I would cook from it. And it was my subject. So this is one series that I did in my garden. When I finished this room, I went up to my painting storage. I had the measurements. And lo and behold, this series, which is not contiguous, fit exactly in this room. Perfect. I love waking up in my garden every day. Besides being my garden room and waking up seeing this amazing green ceiling and this beautiful Venetian 1950 chandelier and these crazy balls that I decided I needed a ton of and make a molding out of, I call this the room of slightly strange chairs. So here we have this beautiful Burmese throne chair, which I have a lot of things from Burma, but actually I bought this from Philadelphia. This chair I've had from the 70s, so it's original. I have to recover it because I had to take the cover off. This chair, this flower chair, is probably perfect for someone who loves botany because you can just sit in it and contemplate the rest of the garden. The house originally had 8 fireplaces, but I know from my past house, which also had 8 fireplaces, you never use 8 fireplaces. Also in New York, it's extremely expensive to bring the fireplaces up to code and line them. And you're not allowed to have a fireplace in the bedroom. So why not make it a library? So I have all my wonderful art books. And this is not book burning. This is book non-burning, appreciating art, books, life, stories, biography, frames, pictures, everything that goes into a rich life. So I'm trying to remember what this room was originally when I first saw the house. I think it might have been like a gym with a bar, not a drinking bar, a ballet bar, which actually I wouldn't mind having now, but that's not what I wanted in my bedroom. So this bedroom was really a blank slate. It had 1970 floor, so I took it back down to the original parquet from 1900. And then I had like, you'll see in one of my rooms I have a mirror, and in colonial times they had a molding that they used in mirrors that had little balls hanging off of it. So I ordered boxes and boxes of balls on Amazon, little wooden balls. And I thought, what am I going to do with them? This was actually the last room I completed in the house. And so I came up with this idea of having the balls suspended from the ceiling, which also goes with the chandelier. And I love it. No one else has molding like this. So the house originally had, not great doors, just normal doors. And in my adventures in the salvage yards of Philadelphia, I found these 2 sets of doors that came from a mansion probably in the 1890s. And I brought them home. Of course, I had to put my painting touch on it. I love a little bit of a gold molding. It's fantastic. And what's great about it is I made the ceiling higher here so that you have like a grand entrance. And I had a matching set for the other side. That's the entrance to the bathroom. So why don't we take a peek in my bathroom? Before we get there, though, I have to tell you about this molding. So the previous owners left me this huge Art Nouveau credenza in the front hallway. It was too big for the hallway. I tried to sell it, but nobody was interested in this huge, big piece of Art Nouveau furniture. So I thought, what's the best elements of it? And it was all these wonderful carved pieces. Like you see, this is very Art Nouveau. And so I took the carved pieces off of the piece of furniture, and I had enough for these 2 doorways, and I reconfigured it in a new way and made moldings. This is my wow bathroom. So I love Islamic art. So the bathroom was inspired by Islamic architecture and objects. So the one thing that I knew I wanted it bright in here, and I had this idea of opalescent tiles. And I looked all over, and finally a friend who lives in Mexico came here and she said, I have the perfect tiles for you. I use them in my house. So these are actually Mexican pool tiles with this beautiful iridescence. But you start one simple thing, and if you're me, it gets more and more complicated. So of course I couldn't just have white plain tiles, I had to have mosaics. So I picked out some gold tiles, and then I kept on ordering little squares of mirror. And then I'm like, oh, but that mother of pearl tile is so pretty. And so I kept on ordering mother of pearl tile. And then I had like these little elements that I could use. So I had these Victorian glass tiebacks, and they came into the picture. You'll see more of them in the shower. The only thing that's original from this house that was from the old renovation were these 2 mirrors that I kept. And then I'm like, okay, so how can I bring it into the room? And you'll see my shower here. I created this arch for the shower. This room was also not in this shape at all. It was also cedar stripping with a very funny ceiling that went like this. And there was a little staircase somewhere in the corner. So I started like, not with a grand plan, but like as each element came by, I would make up the tile work for it. I started on these walls, and I guess to mirror this, I've had this disco ball since the 70s. I found it in a house I was renovating. This is a column from an old house. And so like I knew I wanted to create mosaic columns on the side of the mirrors. On the side of the windows, I just wanted a design. And like one of my favorite things is paisley. So I knew I needed a paisley-shaped bathtub. And my amazing carpenter at night looked at boat building videos, and he figured out how to make this shape. It's actually built like a boat, and then it's fiberglass, and then waterproofed, and then the tiles went in it. So paisley is a beautiful element. This chandelier I had custom made in Morocco. These mirrored pieces Also a kind of mosaic craft. This is mercury glass. I don't think it's real mercury. So this came from Udaipur. I had a ship from India. These are Turkish bath shoes. These are, in the Turkish bath, after you're really hot and steamy, they serve you sorbet. So these are antique sorbet spoons from Istanbul. These are old wallpaper printers. This is they roll them and that's how they make the tape. I also have ancient beauty supplies. This is a mascara. So they put makeup for your eyes in it. These are old, this is Roman. These are old perfume things. These are for togas. They're the pins that hold them closed. I have 3 of them. This is, I bought in India. This is beautiful. This is quartz shaped into a bowl. And totally off topic, I have this chair. I have always wanted this chair from the 70s. It's a French designer. And it was called his friend's chair because he had his friend model for the shape of it. And I just love it. So this door I bought in Jaipur in India. It comes from an old house. It was actually too short for the doorway that I wanted, so I added some wood to the bottom to make it to the right proportion of this room. And of course, I had to discreetly also put it on the bottom of the door. This one, I bought in a little hardware store in Marrakesh. It was like a little hardware outlet. It was like the size of my shower. And it's actually the pole that goes this way. But I thought, oh, it's great. I could use as a handle for this door. And welcome into this room. This is where the toilet and the sink are. This mirror is also from Udaipur. The lamps are Moroccan. This is from like an 1850 Turkish hamam. And my idea that I wanted a floating counter. So this was an engineering feat to build these counters. And just to make the sink the right height, I had to lower this. And then when it was all done, I needed to paint it. And the inspiration came from courtyards in madrasas, in Islamic schools, that they have these huge, big stripes. They're not usually in this colorway, but I must say navy and pink are one of my favorite color combinations. So I had this dream come true too, that I had a navy and pink room for my sink. So this was the last part of the bathroom. So this was the grand finale, the shower. So the idea in my head was it was like walking in a garden. So here we have a fountain. Here, this is a reflecting pool. And you'll see like little jets of water there. Then there's a giant urn. And then you have this explosion of flowers. And what's interesting about this is the material that I use. So these gold tiles, I had done a bathroom around 40 years ago that had little gold fishes. They're actually gold. And I saved about 40 of them. I had them in a little plastic bag all these years. And when I did this house, I have one tile left. This comes from a bathroom on the second floor that doesn't look like this at all because they're all together, but I took the glass apart to make petals. These are various kind of samples I bought, so I just pulled them off the board and made the bugs and the flowers out of them. The tiebacks, these glass Victorian tiebacks, I bought from the estate of the man who started the American wing at the Metropolitan Museum. And actually they have the other 5 of these in their stack. And I bought some less important ones also. Just these are probably 20s. And also the green circles on the top, in the dining room, there were 2 stained glass windows that were like falling down and made the dining room even darker than it is. So I saved all the little green circles and I used them in my shower. So this is like a shower of memory. I love having space. I came from a very large house and I grew up in an apartment in New York and my dream was to have a staircase. And now I have 5 stories of a staircase, so that dream has come true. And I love having people over for dinner, for salons, for concerts. I love sharing my house and meeting new people. There's a myriad of things I love about my home, but not to sound egocentric, but what I love most about my house is it's mine, that I created it. This is my entire vision, my dreams, my passion, and all the work I've put into it. Welcome to my living room, or if you'd like to call it, the Grand Salon. It's where I have salons and concerts and speeches and all kinds of fun things. So this painting I did for the show I mentioned that was all about food. And I saw this beautiful opera singer at a concert, and I thought, I have to get to know this person. And so I went up to her and I said, would you pose for a portrait? And she said, well, after I give birth, I'll come and pose for you. And this is called the Nursing Diva. She's nursing her baby. And we've been lifelong friends. And what she says about posing for me, she says, it's kind of a combination of having tea with a dear friend and going to a therapist. And this is one of my iconic works. This is also a friend of mine, Eva Goyen, who's this incredible pianist and now composer as well. This is a piano which no house can be without. This was an archway into my old house. These are Art Deco chairs that I covered with dead stock sari material. I used to have two of these chairs. They were actually twin beds, and I shortened them to just the right for a chaise, but in this room, I thought two of them were too much. It houses a little bit of my collection of textiles. This is a kimono. These are from Uzbekistan. But what's really interesting is this was another portrait that I did in the series in Japan. This man worked in a kimono factory, and I went to visit him there. And he did all of the stenciling on the beautiful bridal kimonos. So this is actually his work that he gave to me, all these beautiful textiles. So what kind of questions do I ask people who come from portraits? You know, it's much more organic than asking a question. It's not like an interview, like I'm not a journalist, but I am, like my project in Japan, I did feel like I was an anthropologist, a sociologist, I mean, all these, a psychiatrist. All of these interests come into when you interact with a person. And so, do I start off with a question? No, the conversation just flows. It's not a journalistic expedition, even though in Japan it was slightly different, because I did have things that I would ask people, and I had a translator. And one day the translator, I was sitting there and I was like, I really was working hard. It was like a crazy schedule to get all these done. And I asked the translator, just ask the questions. You know what questions I'm going to ask. And she said, no, I could not do that. Because she felt funny asking people questions, where as an artist, you can ask people anything. So this quote unquote bed, because this is guest bed, party where people sit to listen to concerts, where people played board games. My kids used to, you know, do all kinds of fantasy games. I've had tea parties on it. But it originally comes from Bali, from Indonesia. I bought it there and had it shipped home. And I had a mattress made for it. And I had it reinforced. There's steel underneath it, so many people can sit in here and it won't fall apart. The lights in it, those are Egyptians. That's from Tunisia, and it has some textiles from around the world. I made this pillow out of a beautiful old obi. I stuffed it. These were actually part of my dancing costume when I danced in Bali. This is from Pakistan. This one is the oldest one. It actually came from my grandparents' apartment in Budapest. So that's very special. I wonder, doesn't everybody have a big paintbrush in their living room? I mean, it stands next to this beautiful biblical painting by my son. I had a gallery, and I had 2 of these brushes made for the gallery. They were outside. And as an artist, proportion is everything. So you'll see in my house, I go from the tiny to the giant, because the size of things and the way they fit together is just so fascinating. So why not have a giant paintbrush? So we're now entering the library guest room. When I bought this house, okay, they hadn't put cedar stripping on these walls, this 1900 paneling, which is quite different in style from the one in the dining room, but I have seen this in different houses of that period. Even this mantelpiece, I've seen it in several different museums. So they were stock items. But it had this crazy lowered ceiling, also in some kind of bizarre shape. And I knocked through like tons of cedar, like piled up in the floor, to reveal the original ceiling. I don't know why they ever thought that they needed to lower these beautiful 12 and a half foot ceilings. But they did, and I knew that this was a dark room, and so I used, as I said, I love pink and navy. I love navy and gold. So this was really quite a job. My painter couldn't do this. I had to have my carpenter actually laser all of these lines so that they were even. But this is so many, these were from my old house. This is covered in French provincial tapestry. These were custom made. The poof was custom made. People always ask me about these paintbrushes. These are Chinese, and they were used outside of temples where they were dripped in water, and then there was calligraphy done on the sidewalk, and it was ephemeral because they would just evaporate. These 2 copper balls, they were on the top of a building, and as they were tearing it down, I'm like, wait, I need those balls. So I bought them from the wrecking company and then had them polished. These are Tibetan horns. They fold up for easy transport. I mean, these are much taller, but these are the smaller ones that I bought in Tibet. These are paintings of irises I had in my garden. I had a neighbor who was a nun who had moved into the neighborhood in 1915, and she gave me some of the irises from her garden because her father was a bulb importer, and I guess iris corms as well. And so every year they would bloom, and they smelled like grapes. They were just so fantastic. So annually I did a few paintings of them. They faded very quickly, so I had to like get there right at the moment every year that they started to blossom. And the interesting things, this is the room, this is my temple to Bohemia, I call it. So amazingly, I bought these in Morocco. What's interesting about them is that they're made from aloe fiber. And these are different dead stock saris, Moroccan carpets. My mother loved leopard, so those were her pillows. This is a beautiful, also from Uzbekistan. Anything that's purple is very special, and these are gold threads. I have another, this one is from Turkey. This is a beautiful jacket with gold thread, and of course my favorite, has some of my favorite paisley. These are interesting. My father had a textile mill in New Jersey, and I went back there, and they had a museum across the street from his now it's a loft, but from his factory. So the director of the museum gave me all of these that came from his factory that was across the street. And they also had the original sign. I had wanted to go back there with a ladder and a screwdriver, but when I got there, the museum had it. So it's lovely. They have his sign, they have some of his machinery, and they have a lot of his threads. And this is really interesting because this is a Jacquard card. This was the original computer. On, off, on, off. On the top of my shelves, I have, these are various things from Japan with the textile theme, a weaver. That's a tile from a roof. On the other side, there's some pieces of temples from Burma. Those are also from Burma. On top, they're from the 1700s. They're over doors from Venice. This lamp actually was in my parents' living room since the 1950s. I love the sculpture on it. This is a painting of a videographer and Garane Tarosian. And she brought as her object this bag of hers and these Armenian crosses. And so since she was a filmmaker, there's all of this film going on and all of these eyes watching you. Also, the room just had small little windows. So I made these doors because I wanted to bring in more light. And the railings are from Philadelphia Salvage. There's a theme going on here, but they're the same age as the house. And the transoms were there. They were just covered up. So I was able to keep with the beautiful high proportions of the room. I had to kind of work on this a little bit because there were radiators here, so I had to change the dynamic of it. These are things I've collected all over Asia. I have some antiquities here. I love archaeology. These are hair ornaments from Indonesia. This is actually a napkin from my grandmother's trousseau, and there are her initials, Aranka Zucker, AZ. This is a part of a Greek plate. I don't know, this is just a museum of wonderful, beautiful things that are made by people in this wonderful, beautiful world. Home means to me a place where I can be free to create and enjoy life. Bye, Homeworthy. Thank you for coming. It's been so much fun. But I gotta get back into the studio. Time for painting. Thanks for coming.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Lucy. Welcome to my home in East London. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Lucy Hayes. I'm a playwright, screenwriter, director, and I also share my home on social media as a home content creator. So we are in East London and I live in a 1920s ex-council house. So it has all of these amazing features like parquet floors, external pipes, so you can see all of the pipes in my home. It doesn't have any skirting boards, it's also got curved skirting boards, so it has all of these original kind of 1920s features and really thick walls, so if you try and drill anything it takes about half an hour. Welcome to the living room. This is actually at the back of the house, so one of the first rooms that you come to. One of the things that I love about this room most is these two massive south-facing windows. Really lucky to have a lot of natural light, and you've obviously come on a beautiful summer's day, which is really the unpaid actor in this in this setup. The room has an original fireplace here, which is also something else that I loved about the property, was that it had these kind of original cast iron fireplaces. And so I suppose having everything kind of centered around this was probably where I started in terms of kind of bringing pieces together. Another kind of key thing in designing and bringing the space together was this painting. I had never owned any original art before I bought this place, and so it was kind of on my bucket list that I would kind of like invest in a few really key pieces, and this is one of the pieces that I bought. I bought it at an auction in Spain and had it shipped over and didn't realise how expensive the custom fees were going to be, but we just paid those and moved on, and now I enjoy it every day. So I feel like the kind of colours in this kind of informed it. I really like the kind of honey yellows and the kind of pale pinks and the kind of mellowness of it. And so I guess, yeah, that kind of sense of warmth and softness has kind of informed the other choices in the room. I already had this sofa from a previous flat, and although it doesn't necessarily look like the sample, I thought it was going to be brown. I think they call it cinnamon. This was also something that kind of had to work in here, and so I sort of like the idea of kind of playing with a kind of spicy colour palette, and so it's this kind of red, and then for this other sofa I've gone for this kind of large pink chaise longue. I definitely didn't really want something that matched, but I kind of wanted something that complemented each other, and this is kind of how this baby pink number came into being. I like that it doesn't have a kind of like there doesn't have an arm on this way, because obviously it is quite a large sofa, and I kind of intentionally wanted it to feel really large so that there was like as many seating options as possible in obviously what is quite a small space actually. So I kind of like the idea that, you know, you kind of stand at the door and it kind of feels like you could like run and jump into this and kind of just get really cozy. So in this corner I have this IKEA shelving unit. It used to be here was like a big old boiler cupboard that like protruded out of the wall, which I think is interesting because often with kind of period properties you get the kind of stuck out section with the fireplace, and then you get these little alcoves on both sides, but that wasn't what we had here. And so when I was renovating I had to build in a fake wall that hides some of that stuff that we couldn't get taken out. Lots of people, I always get comments on my TikTok and Instagram about people saying, oh, you should put inbuilt shelving in and that kind of thing. I would love that, but it's actually quite a shallow gap, so we're just going with this IKEA unit for now. One of my favourite things on here is actually this lemon. This is a lemon that my friend made for me with my first published play. So it's actually, the lemon is actually made up of the words of the script. So it's really special, and it's just amazing. I think someone handmade this. She got them to handmade it. I honestly don't know how she did it. But I just kind of love how unexpected it is, and that you just wouldn't know that that was what it was. But I know. And so she has her little spot on the books there. So this, I suppose, is what you would call a gallery wall. I googled lots of like how to build a gallery wall and, you know, kind of how to do it correctly, and then kind of just got completely overwhelmed by that, and then just like looked at what I had and was like, you know, what can work here? A lot of these were pieces that I kind of already owned and collected and kind of have quite like random histories. This is actually a tea towel from the Tate Modern, because I really love David Shrigley, but this particular print is limited edition and £5,000 if you buy it. So I got a little bit of styrofoam and a little bit of DIY, and now it lives there. This is a Japanese oil that I bought from a secondhand shop. I really like blue, but there's not really like a lot of blue in my home. I'm not really sure why. So I really like the kind of peacefulness of this, and the fact that you can almost see the texture of the trees. That kind of, you know, it's like, I love that about original art, is that you can kind of see the 3D-ness of it sometimes. Absolutely love that. And this is a actually originally a wine label by an artist that I really liked called Luke Edward Hall, and it was designed for a claret bottle, as it says on the poster. And back when I was kind of first furnishing my first flat, I didn't have any money. I was kind of looking at ways that I could get art that I liked for a kind of affordable price point, and so I just blew a couple of things up, and this is one of the things that I actually think turned out really well, considering that like on a wine bottle it would probably be like that big. This here is actually a collage that I did myself one Christmas, got out the arts and crafts and kind of put it together, and then my mum got very excited because she's an artist, and you'll see I've got a couple of pieces that she's done around the house, and she suddenly thought I was in my craft era, and then I turned out not to be. But this is a remnant of it, and I do really love collage. I love the unexpectedness of it, and so this lives as an homage to when I was arty one Christmas, and reminds me that maybe that could be me again one day. Is a relatively kind of new addition in the sense that I used to not have it styled, and I used to have this coffee table and then a kind of slightly bigger counterpoint, because I felt like, oh my God, I've got this space to fill, and let me kind of fill it with things. And because the sofa's quite wide as well, I kind of felt like I wanted everyone on the sofa to be able to have access to the table. But actually over Christmas, when we were trying to fit the Christmas tree in here, we took out that coffee table, and it kind of hasn't really come back. I think it's kind of much better to have the space around it. And I always like the idea of a clear coffee table, but I think that then it just kind of, as it's the centre point when you come into the room, I feel like if it's kind of clear, it often gets lots of bits of laptops or kind of coffee cups or kind of what other people are using through the day, and it kind of feels a bit disorganised, I suppose. So I put some things on it and entered my coffee styling era, and it now feels like a much more kind of calm and organised area. So we've got this shell trinket dish, which I actually bought at a French flea market. I always have this thing at flea markets where I look at something and I think, oh my God, that's going to be either really cheap or really expensive. And that's what I was doing with this. I was kind of holding it and thinking, oh, do I really like it? Before I kind of speak in my bad French and ask how expensive it is. And then the vendor told me it was €2. And I thought, that's coming home with me. I shouldn't really overthink that. So I was very happy when I found a place for it, because I feel like I often find things secondhand and I really love them, and then I just don't know where I'm going to put them, and I kind of just feel like I hope for the best with it, which is also true of this little gold trinket dish. I actually found this at a kind of secondhand warehouse in East London as part of a set. It was, they were all little trinket dishes that they were all the suits from a pack of cards, and it was the 4 of them. And I thought, oh, that was so lovely, but I just don't need the 4 of them. And I was with my mum, and my mum was saying, oh, but you love it. I'm sure you could find a home for it somewhere. And I thought, going to be restrained, I don't need it. And then a couple of months later, they were having a warehouse sale, and so I just went back, and they just had this one for sale, and so I thought, well, that's a sign, I suppose. And it kind of moves around. I know it's quite small, but at the minute it lives here in this little gap on my coffee table, and it feels very satisfying, I think, when you have a kind of secondhand piece that drifts around for a bit, and then you kind of find a place and you think, oh, that's where it was meant to be. I grew up in East London, and so I knew that if I was ever going to buy a home, it would also be in East London. So I started looking after the rent in my previous place got increased astronomically, and I didn't really know when was going to be the right time to start looking for my first flat, but I just kind of started to see what was out there. And so I was looking for a really long time, just looking on Rightmove, kind of looking all over East London, just kind of wherever would fit in my budget. And I actually looked for maybe 4 or 5 months, and I didn't go and see anywhere because I kind of couldn't really believe that I could possibly, own a home. So this was actually the first place that I came to see. And I was just so amazed by how many of the original features that it had. The fact that it had these big windows, the fact that it had original parquet flooring, the fact that it had even-sized rooms. I mean, I feel like in London you often get like one size room, which is like the little box room. And so the fact that it just had like well-proportioned rooms, and it had like a separate kitchen and a separate living room as well. It just kind of felt too good to be true, to be honest. I actually found it because the flat opposite was for sale, and my mum actually found that, and that was marketed by a very fancy estate agent, and I just loved the look of the block, so I just googled the name of the block, and lo and behold, this flat was also for sale, and it wasn't quite as well photographed, and it wasn't quite as a fancy of estate agent, so it was on at a much more reasonable price point. So I then did go and see the flat opposite as well, but they were the only two flats that I saw, and then I put an offer on this place, and with a bit of kind of back and forward, moved in about 6 months later. Now I would love to show you through the kitchen. Come with me. Welcome to the kitchen. So this is a north-facing kitchen, and so I felt like I wanted to be really kind of precise with what colours I used in here. I originally had this idea of this like olive kitchen, olive green, because I thought that was really classy. But when I put the samples on the wall, it just absolutely did not work. It just looked so dark with the natural light that comes through. But the kitchen really started, I think, with these tiles. These are Zellige tiles, so they're all handmade and they're all super uneven, which kind of creates this effect that means that they reflect the light really well. I just absolutely love the effect of them and how they bounce the light, and so I was like forensically looking on eBay, and I think these were actually maybe one of the first things that I bought for the house. Was I found an old job lot of Zellige tiles on eBay, and I kind of wanted a neutral colour, like. And these weren't quite the colour that I imagined, but they were on for such a good price that I just thought, I'm just going to get them. And so I got them, and then I was kind of happy to build everything else around that, which maybe is a risky way of designing, but you know, led by excitement, I suppose. So yeah, so I absolutely love these. When I showed them to my builder, he was absolutely so confused by the fact that they didn't need grout and that they were all uneven, and he thought that if he put them all on the wall they were going to kind of go in all different directions, but he did a great job. And so yeah, starting with this, I suppose then the next biggest question was kind of what colour to paint it, and I've ended up going for the colour that we have now that you can see, which I think they kind of describe as like a kind of reddy brown. It's kind of like a deep dusky pink. I think it's a really unusual colour, and it's quite dark in lots of ways, but for some reason I think just kind of really works with the light in here. I think being a creative, I was naturally swayed by it because it's called Ghost, the colour, and it's inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe's Ghost Ranch, and so I thought, well, you know, it's good enough for Georgia O'Keeffe, it's good enough for me. So I think that was my second decision, and then I always knew that I wanted oak worktops and to have units that were kind of that were solid wood, and so we found a company in Nottingham, a family company in Nottingham that kind of made the whole unit together. My mum very kindly helped kind of sketching out, you know, all of the different kind of bits that I'd need and all the different kind of sizes, and sent it off to them. And the choice of yellow surprised me. As I said, I originally wanted olive green, but when I was thinking of something that would kind of pair in, I just kept seeing these images on Instagram and Pinterest of yellow kitchens, and I just thought it looked really joyful, and I thought the kind of, you know, proximity to cream kind of feels like it can have a kind of almost neutral quality. And yeah, so I absolutely love my yellow units. I think it goes really well with the oak. We've got these open shelves up here. Originally, when I moved in, it was all like lots of units around here. And I suppose I always knew that I wanted open shelves just to kind of give a bit more space into quite a small kitchen. I feel like in other houses, you see open shelving and it's like beautifully styled with just like one vase and one plate. And because this is a small kitchen, they also have to be super practical. So we're just trying to, you know, make what we need to have out look as aesthetic as possible. So, you know, we have some references to design. You know, we've got some art up, I've got some jug and some, my jug and some kind of dried things up there, and trying to go for some different levels and kind of get that kind of aesthetic shelf, you know, feel, but at the same time, like, it stores my mugs, and this is where all my tea is, and, you know, this is where my teapot is, and, you know, it's trying to be kind of aesthetic and functional at the same time. This is my Smeg. She is probably the most expensive thing that I bought. I know that they are a bit like sort of labelly, but my mum has had her Smeg since before I was born, and she always makes a joke saying, my Smeg's older than you. So I thought, if this Smeg lasts me 30 years, the cost per year will go down by the years. So yeah, I think it reminds me of the Smeg that we had when I was growing up. It feels really adult to get a proper fridge after flat sharing and kind of having one shelf of like a, you know, half unit. I remember kind of opening it for the first time and being like, all of these shelves, you know, what am I going to put in them? And then rapidly filling them and then going, oh, I don't have enough space. So I think you just kind of expand to the space that you have. She does gurgle sometimes, and she does make a lot of noises, but we do love her for it. And then the flooring is the, I suppose, final kind of design element with the tiles and the units and the colour. I can't really remember how I found these, but there used to be like a kind of lino on the floor, and when we pulled it up, it was one of the first things that we did and kind of exposed the concrete, but we didn't realise how sticky it was going to be. So you sort of would come in here, you know, to like make a cup of tea or something and kind of have your feet or your socks kind of sticking for ages. So then we put down all these plastic bags to kind of make it better. And then when we lifted the plastic bags up, they were all like breaking because of how sticky the glue was from the lino. So it was a very happy day when these tiles went in. I don't know if these tiles are a marble. I think they advertised them as a marble, but they weren't as expensive as a marble. But I really like the checkerboard. I really like the kind of way that the colour is quite tonal, and it kind of matches in with the walls but kind of offers something else. I think one of my favourite things about this kitchen is I feel like each of the kind of main design elements has like its own personality. Like, I think quite a lot of them are quite bold choices, but somehow they all kind of work together and kind of fit together to kind of create a cohesive feel. This was definitely, I would say, the room that I was most nervous about coming together, because I kind of put all of the little samples and all of the images together, and I kind of thought, I think that's going to look good. But it kind of wasn't really until everything came in and came together that I kind of breathed out and thought, oh, okay, like it does actually work really well together. So yeah, that was a relief. This wall actually, when I moved in, came all the way out to the end of this bit here, mainly to kind of conceal this meter here. And so there was an enormously long hallway cupboard that went all the way along here, but kind of cut out quite a lot of the kitchen, like particularly I think with the kind of walkway round to the door and that kind of thing. It kind of felt like quite kind of cramped as soon as you came in. So one of the things that we did was we kind of knocked down all of that wall and built a kind of separate cupboard and unit just to house the meter. It's a bigger cupboard than I thought it would be. I think you'd be surprised to see how small the meter is, but you know, put some plants on it and kind of tried to make it as, and a fancy knob on the door here to kind of try and make it as kind of aesthetic as possible. And yeah, I think it just really opened up the space, and kind of small things like originally the kitchen units used to come out all the way to the wall as well, but when I was kind of putting the new kitchen in, we just kind of like reduce the space just by amount as well, just to kind of create a bit more of a walkthrough. So it felt like the kind of outside was much more accessible when you came in. I think like creating that kind of flow and that kind of openness was really important, and kind of shows you like just the small adjustments and things that you can do that kind of, you know, make a space feel much more inviting. This unit here, again, is another IKEA shelf. I don't know if it's a kind of temporary solution. I think a permanent solution, sorry. I think at one point I was kind of interested in having like another unit that matched, that kind of went there. But it's quite, again, like it's a kind of a strange shape. It's kind of strange dimension in some ways. But I knew I wanted to have somewhere to store all of my cookbooks. Absolutely love cooking, and I just love having cookbooks out as well, because I just feel like the designs are often so colourful. And so for the minute, we've just got them here. And I quite enjoy how this wine rack on the top here kind of gives the impression that it's like all cohesive, because the kind of sizes just about match up. I find it really hard to describe my design style, because I think I'm an aspiring minimalist, but I think if you look at my house, you wouldn't say it was minimalism. I had lived in a lot of rented places before this, and so I think the prospect of like having a whole space to fill was so unbelievably exciting, but also kind of really daunting. And I kind of looked at a lot of inspirational images, like looked at Pinterest, Instagram, a lot of things like that, to kind of come up with, you know, something that felt, you know, kind of really true to me and kind of felt like home. I think I would probably describe my style as like minimalism, maybe slightly mid-century. I have a lot of like vintage pieces that I absolutely love. I didn't realise I was so into colour, but one of the comments I often get about my home is about the use of colour, and I definitely feel like I've gone for a lot of kind of like warm tones and things like that. So I think it's more perhaps a feeling that I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create a kind of home that feels like inviting and kind of inspiring. I work from home quite a lot, and so I kind of want a space that feels both relaxing and inspiring at the same time. So yeah, I also wanted a home that I guess felt timeless. I was aware that, you know, in a couple of years I might get really bored with everything, and you know, when you just spent all this money on decorating somewhere, like you kind of want to know that you're investing in pieces that you'll continue to enjoy, like, you know, much into the future. Let's go to the study. Welcome to my study/dining room. This room was definitely the hardest room to kind of bring together, because I knew that I wanted a dining space, but I also work from home, so that I knew that I needed an office space. And so I kind of thought there's a world in which they can kind of work in the same space. But I feel like it's kind of been a journey over the last year and a half to kind of continue to make it a space that feels like it can kind of have those two quite like opposing functions work together. This room was a challenge as well, because it was the storage room for the longest time. It was like the least essential room, like when I was renovating, and so it just was a storage room for all of the deliveries that were coming, for the builder's tools and all of that kind of thing. So by the time I actually kind of got it back, it took me a long time to kind of shed the kind of, you know, sight of boxes and kind of, you know, packages coming and putting it down there and that kind of thing. And so it's always been a little bit messy, but I think I'm just now, probably a year and a half later, getting it to a point where it feels like it is kind of cohesive. It's also quite a tricky room, because even though it's got this lovely big south-facing window, it's quite a long room. And so actually it can be quite dark in here. And so finding the colour of the wall was really important. I got really obsessed with the idea of having a blue study, because I read that blue was the colour of creativity, and I thought, you know, I need that. But I bought some blue, and my mum came over for Sunday lunch, and my boyfriend and my mum were looking at the paint that I'd got, and I think I'd painted like a big splodge on that, being like, that's the colour. And then we were both all stood in the doorway looking at it, and they were both like, it's not the right colour. And I was like, I've just spent so much money on paint. It has to be the right colour. And they were like, you know, we don't think you're going to be happy with it. Like, obviously you live your life, but I think it needs a different colour. And I heard what they were saying, because, you know, blue is a cool colour, and I think the light in here can be quite cool and quite shadowy. And so I kind of went back to the drawing board, and that's when I stumbled across this colour, which is a colour called Faded Terracotta by Flair and Ball. It's a kind of orangey, peachy colour, and I think it's kind of really unusual because it can look really saturated in artificial light, but when there's a lot of sunshine, it can look really pale and kind of really washed out. And I kind of love colours that kind of contain that kind of flexibility and that kind of ability that kind of, you know, they transition across the day and you kind of get different feels at different times. So that's how we decided the colour on the walls. And then I kind of feel like I describe this as like my colourful room. I feel like everything else has all the other rooms have like a little bit more of a muted palette, and then this room is like everything, all the colours. Like, I just wanted this room to feel really fun and really colourful, and kind of really vibrant. So this area here was, when you come right in, is the kind of dining area, and this table is actually a family heirloom. This is the table that I had as a child, and my parents were obviously feeling very fancy one day because they got it shipped over from Ireland, and it's a cherry oak table. It's funny because I remember it being much bigger than it actually is. As a kid, I remember kind of like all the adults sitting around the table and kind of feeling like I was like a million miles away from people, but actually having it, it's a lovely size, but it's actually quite small. And so, so I have this table which kind of has all these marks on it that, you know, I kind of don't know where they came from, but I suppose was either kind of me as a child or my parents or kind of one of our family friends. And I'm happy that it's kind of got this second life in my home now. And these chairs that surround it, I think they actually go quite well with the table, and I like how kind of, you know, ergonomic they fit. But these are one of the first pieces of furniture I ever bought. I used to live in Bristol, which is where I did my MA, and I got an unfurnished flat, and I didn't realise how expensive furniture was. So I went around with my mum again to all the secondhand shops and found these chairs, and they are Urkel chairs, which is a kind of very famous mid-century designer. And I really loved them, I really loved the colour, I really loved the shape of them. But it took me quite a lot of convincing to buy them, because I thought, I can't spend that much money on some chairs. And then I got a kind of stern phone call from my dad being like, do you love them? Will they fit with the table? Will they last you forever? And I was going, yeah. And then he was going, buy the chairs. So we went back the next day, bought the chairs, and I didn't even really think about how they would go with the table, but they go really well. And so I suppose, again, that's a kind of sign of, you know, it meant to be. And so they've now been with me. This is their third flat that they've been in. It's really nice that they kind of get their rightful place in this moment. I feel like getting a rug was like a really good moment. I used to not have a rug here, and kind of going back to what I was saying about like creating zones in the flat, I think the rug, it's actually my boyfriend who suggested it, like just helps to like really center the space and kind of give it its like own identity in kind of contrast to everything else. This is a USM unit, which I was really keen to have in my flat. I've been a real admirer of USM Haller for a really long time, and I thought, there must be a kind of home for a USM sideboard in my home. I kind of call this like the bar cart, although my flatmate calls it Welcome to the Slytherin I'll say that again. My flatmate calls it Welcome to the Slytherin Common Room because obviously it's quite a bright green. I actually found this unit, or I should say my mum found this unit, again it's thrifted, from a secondhand office furniture dealer. I think because USM Hello, although now it's like obviously super trendy, is like actually super functional and practical pieces. There was a seller in East London that was kind of selling them secondhand for about 1/3 of the original price, and I never initially wanted green. I think, as you can maybe pick up on, the kind of colours for this room were kind of this like peachy orange and blue, colour of creativity, but they had a green and it was a great price, and they had a Black Friday sale, and I thought, I can make that work. So it is very vibrant, but I do absolutely love it. I just feel sophisticated when I look at it. And this throw that's above it, I feel kind of unexpectedly works really well. This is from my previous flat. It used to live behind my bed, and it used to cover a wall that was absolutely covered in mold. So I bought this kind of big wall hanging to cover that, and instantly knew that when I was moving here that it would live in here, because I felt like it actually kind of contains the colours of the room, these two colours, but yeah, I feel like it kind of exhibited all the kind of qualities of fun that I wanted it to. It's obviously a great size for the unit as well, and I kind of love the contrast of like the texture on the wall. I really like putting, you know, art on the wall, but also kind of, you know, plates or different kind of things. And I think that the kind of texture of this is really good to kind of offset the stainless steel. I absolutely love chrome and stainless steel, but I think that it can often run the risk of feeling a little cold. And so I just like the way that kind of having these two next to each other just warms that up. And this is the alcohol of said bar cart. And these are the toucans of said bar cart. These are actually my boyfriend's. I get questions about these on my social media all the time about where I got these from, and I have to say I don't know. But they're Guinness. This is a Guinness toucan. This is the jug and the little salt and pepper shakers. And I'm Irish, so obviously Guinness is welcome, and also green is also very welcome in this house. This is my bookshelf. I always was kind of cramming all the books that I had in previous flats into super small spaces, and so I was so excited to get as big a shelves as these. These are just scaffold boards, and then these kind of like tracking shelves. I think it's probably the kind of cheapest shelving that you can get, but I painted it blue to get that little burst of creativity in. I just kind of like the unexpectedness of the two colours together. And then this is all of my books. So we've tried to do a little bit of shelf styling. I feel like it's still a work in progress, and also because of the amount of books as well. Obviously, like, they've just kind of got to work. I feel like I always look at other people's shelves and I think that looks really good, and then I kind of look at my own shelves and I think, what's it not giving? But we just keep tweaking. So down here I have all of my plays all together, and then everything else is kind of like a mix of fiction and non-fiction and poetry, with kind of little objects interspersed through. This is also a vase from the same flea market that my shell dish is from. Again, this was a moment where I thought, oh, that looks kind of, you know, really valuable, and then the dealer told me it was 50 cents, so I thought, yeah, that's coming home with me. So yeah, I love that, and I kind of, this is one of the pieces that doesn't have a permanent home. I kind of move it around, and I kind of think, oh, I want something to put there, and I think, oh, because, you know, it's such a good size. So at the minute it's here. These are actually pink peppercorns. I had these in a kind of Christmas wreath, and then I extracted them and kept them. But yeah, who knew? Pink peppercorns. Can you see this fellow in the top corner? I don't actually know who this is. This is a puppet that was given to my dad, which he thinks looks like our cousin, or his cousin. And when I was kind of filling the flat and looking for little things to put in it, my dad said, "Oh, do you want the puppet of Kevin?" That's the name of my dad's cousin. And I said no, because I thought it was slightly cursed. I said, "No, I don't have anywhere to put it, da 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 da." And he went, all right. And then when my dad came over just to kind of check on how the renovation progress was going, I kind of turned my back to him for a second, and the next thing I knew, he was going, "Oh, he can live up there." And he'd kind of pulled a chair and he'd got this huge puppet out of his bag, and he'd kind of proudly put him in the top corner up there. And so I've not dared touch him since, because I think, well, if that's where he lives, that's where he lives. So, you know, he's a reminder that, you know, you can make incredibly intentional design choices, but sometimes design choices just happen to you, and that's part of something feeling like a home as well. This windowsill is also blue. It's got some lovely sunlight on the minute, but this actually wasn't meant to be blue. I asked the decorator that I had to paint the bookshelves blue and to also paint the door blue, but I think maybe I said woodwork as I was kind of going out to work, and I came back and this window shelf was blue, which felt incredibly random, and I just live with it. I don't know if I like it or I don't like it, but I suppose it like fits in with you know, with some of the other blue that we've got going on. But again, another design choice that just kind of happens and you embrace. This here is my little desk area. This is actually a tiny, tiny desk, and actually is originally a console table. In my previous flat, I had the kind of smallest gap between where my bed used to be and the wall, and so I kind of was on eBay looking for a desk that might fit in that area, and I found this, and I think it's actually supposed to be a console table, and it was about £45 on eBay. And my mum and I went to, I think it was somewhere beginning with M. It was just outside of London somewhere, and so we made a day trip, and it was still kind of COVID time. So I remember my mum made like a flask of tea and some sandwiches, and we went and picked it up, and yeah, it's absolutely tiny. It's almost impractical for purpose, but I just really like the colour of it. The shape of it feels kind of quite classic. It's obviously got this storage with it here, and I guess the memory of kind of, you know, me saying to my mum, "Oh, I've bought this table, you know, an hour outside of London. Do you want to come and, you know, get it with me?" And her going, "Oh, okay, then I'll make tea and sandwiches." It's kind of such a fond memory that it's kind of nice when, you know, when I'm working here and I kind of know that that's where it's come from. I've matched here the books with the colours on the print. I don't know if you can see that, but I was very impressed with myself for doing that. Just a little bit of cohesiveness here. This little vase, I've got a few of these. I picked them up at a ceramic fair at Stepney City Farm, which is super close to me. They're all kind of seconds. And so, you know, they've got quite an uneven rim here, but I kind of really like the imperfection of it. And this is just an offcut of this mimosa, actually. This is the baby. This is the mummy, this is the baby. But yeah, I don't know, it just feels really joyful. I think it's really nice when you're working just to have things. It feels a bit silly as well. I feel like it's just quite nice to have things that feel a bit kind of silly and joyful when you're, you know, working and, you know, doing something that feels really serious. Yeah, and I think, final thing I'll say in this room, I think having these big plants is also something that really helped to kind of delineate the space between this kind of study area and this dining area. I originally just got one and I thought that was going to be enough, but I feel like something about having two kind of just helps to make it feel a bit more intentional, and to kind of make it feel like a bit of an area. This cactus I actually got from B&Q. I went into B&Q because everyone was posting about the Black Friday sales, and classically I then went in and bought something that wasn't in the Black Friday sale. yeah, I kind of like the contrast of having something that's kind of quite architectural and spiky, and then having something that's like super soft. And I have to cut this this one all the time because it just absolutely loves to spread out, and kind of sometimes you'll be working and you'll kind of feel like a kind of frond kind of come and sort of plonk itself on the desk. So it feels like it kind of has a mind of its own. Yeah, my interest in interiors and home is obviously very different to what I do. I think the fact that I work in the creative industry has always meant that having a sense of home, whether that's to work in or to come back to, has always been really important to me. I always feel like it's almost like a physical thing of like how you feel in a space. And I feel like I've always felt kind of quite sensitive to that. My mum actually has inspired a lot of my love of like secondhand stuff. She used to be a secondhand dealer, and so when I was kind of looking for pieces, it was just after kind of COVID, and my mum was shielding, and so going to lots of antique fairs and spending time outside together, in like a field in like the cold, was like a way that we could hang out. And so it kind of grew from that, was this kind of shared love and this kind of thing that we could do together, and then kind of getting pieces that felt unique and were full of character. So it feels like like homes are, I guess, and interiors are so joyful to me because it's not something that I do for work. It's not something that I have trained in. It's just it's just something that feels like it can, improve your everyday. I think that's kind of why I started sharing my home on social media, was this love of taking care of your space and putting pride into your space and kind of, really valuing where you live. Now let's head to the bedroom. Welcome to the bedroom. So this is my bedroom. Would you believe it? I think this is also probably a room that I didn't really have much of a kind of design plan for. I think I was so used to living in shared flats where your bedroom is kind of your main expression of personality that you kind of can't really put like a design scheme onto that. So it was quite overwhelming to have the prospect of like something that, I could actually design. That being said, I have been obsessed with the colour Setting Plaster by Flair for the longest time. And although I'm like not a massive fan of pink, this is obviously pink walls, which my childhood self would probably be mortified by. But what I really like about this colour is that it's supposed to reflect the colour of kind of dried plaster when you put that on the walls before you paint it. And I think there's something really soothing about that because it's quite an earthy colour. It feels kind of quite natural. It feels quite kind of cocooning. And so I think that that kind of felt like such a kind of beautiful basis for a bedroom. And so I very much started with this. This art piece here was an unexpected purchase. I was only expecting to buy one piece of art for my home, which was the piece in the living room that you saw. But I saw this piece and I absolutely loved it. And so I was kind of looking at my budget and trying to work out how I could make it work. And I was like, oh, should I just get it? Should I just get it? And I bought it, and it felt really decadent and really impulsive. But I feel like it's kind of the main focal point in the room, and I actually feel like the colours in this room are kind of maybe slightly random, but actually all of them can be found in this painting, which feels really reassuring to me because, there's a lot going on in terms of like greens and blues and pinks and all of that kind of thing. But the fact that, they kind of exist in one universe here, I think then kind of really makes them like cohesive in the space when they might not feel so otherwise. I was also very excited to get these, I don't know what you call them, little night lights by the side of the bed. These felt very grown up and very sophisticated when I bought these. As you can see the cables, which is because everything in this flat is surface mounted. So if I want any wall lights or anything like that, they all have to have external cables. They can't be kind of wired up into the walls, but we love that. You learn to love it. So it was obviously very nerve-wracking to try and get them on both sides to match up and to be even, because this is something that me and my boyfriend did together, and I can still see the kind of pencil marks where we were like trying to use our maths GCSEs and really like make sure they were really even. I actually don't know if they are, but I also feel like with things like this you have to be like, as long as it looks okay to the naked eye, it's okay. And it's quite funny because like reaching up to get the switch is like you have to be at a certain angle to do it, and you can do it. That was important because things like this, they have to be at a level where you can actually turn them on if you're lying down in bed. Over here in this corner, just going to straighten B-roll. I'm just going to straighten this photo. Over here in this corner, you can see that we've got another original fireplace. I know that I'm probably committing a major sin by putting my wardrobe here and kind of almost covering it up. But we used to have the wardrobe at the end of the bed, and the gap between the end of the bed and the wardrobe was so narrow, and if the wardrobe doors were open you couldn't get past, and this area was supposed to be a little bit more like, I think I had a bench here and a chairs, and it's supposed to be a bit more relaxing, but actually meant that the kind of main pieces of furniture were all cramped up in one space of the room. And so one day my boyfriend and I were like, what if we just move it here? Yes, it will block the fireplace, but maybe we can live with that. And we did that, and it actually made the room feel so much bigger and so much more peaceful, that unfortunately we have had to sacrifice a little bit of this here, but you can still like, there's still air, you can still see it. I feel like the feng shui gods, they might be angry, but hopefully they'll understand. This painting here is from a Swedish auction site, which is one of my guilty pastimes because everything looks really affordable and cheap until you look at the shipping fees. But if you balance it all out, so this I think was like, I bought this for like £20 or something like that, and was kind of part of my, I guess, like, interest over the past couple of years in kind of trying to buy original pieces and unique pieces of art. And with this one again, I just like the textures of it. I just like the colours of it. I quite like art that kind of creates a sense of calm, I suppose, particularly in the bedroom. And that's what I got from here. This lamp actually is a scissor lamp and is also from the same Swedish she swings, is also from the same Swedish auction site. These are kind of, pieces that I think have become quite trendy in the last couple of years. So you can see them on lots of kind of secondhand websites in the UK for, have been upsold by quite a lot. And so finding this one on auction was really great because, it was from Denmark. And buying it direct from Denmark turned out to be kind of a lot cheaper than kind of getting it from someone that had already done that shipping. So we got it rewired, which felt very grown up. I've never sort of bought a lamp and had it rewired before. I didn't do it myself. I got an electrician to do it. Yeah, it's always a bit nerve-wracking, I think, when you do something like that you're going to buy the right parts. I think I didn't buy the right switch, but the electrician managed to make it work. And then this chair here is, I think, one of the first things that I bought when I knew that I was going to buy the flat. I saw it from a secondhand seller on Instagram, and I just absolutely fell in love with the kind of shape of the arms. Again, we've kind of got the chrome here and the corduroy and the kind of deep blue. And so I bought it, I think, about 6 months before I moved in here, and then didn't have anywhere to put it because it couldn't go in the flat that I was in currently. So I think my dad actually took it in the end, and kind of we managed to put it in some storage. So it was a good day when this came out, but it's moved around. It used to be in that room, It used to be in the kind of study room, but has kind of found a home here for the moment, which is lovely, and has had this recent addition of this very tiny cushion, which I actually bought in Rye when I went back there a few weeks ago for my boyfriend's birthday. It's actually quite a narrow chair. I don't think you'd think it to look at it, but if you put a regular sized cushion in, it kind of takes over the chair. So when I saw this very tiny cushion, I thought, I know where that would be perfect for. And then next to it is this stool, which again is a vintage stool. I got this at a flea market in London, and it's quite Art Deco. I think I have a few pieces in my flat which are like unintentionally quite Art Deco, but I absolutely just love the kind of frill, the fringing here, and the kind of chrome squiggly details. This was definitely something that when I bought it, like I didn't know where it was going to live, and I kind of tried it in a few different places, and it kind of floated for a while, and then one day I thought, oh, I know, why don't I just kind of try it next to this chair here, because I think often it's about creating like a bit of an environment. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I think you can have a chair somewhere, but it doesn't feel like necessarily an invitation to sit down unless you've got somewhere to put a cup of tea or a glass of water or something. And so I think that actually putting more stuff somewhere might be slightly counterintuitive, but like actually creates kind of a more kind of relaxing sense. So that was my rationale anyway, behind kind of moving this here. And then moving round, I think actually talking through everything, most pieces in this room are secondhand. This is also secondhand. This is actually from the same flea market as this little stool here, so it was a successful day. This is a G-plan unit, so again, like a mid-century influence. And then above it, I have this little shelf that I found, that I thrifted, that we used to display all of our kind of perfumes on, and kind of try to make a kind of something aesthetic out of, you know, a need to store something somewhere. When I moved in, I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna have a clear chest of drawers, because I feel like when you're renting, your chest of drawers is like one of your only kind of display places, or one of your only kind of surfaces in your bedroom. So like all of the previous places that I've had, the kind of, you know, chest of drawers has been kind of cluttered with kind of makeup or mirrors or kind of display things, that kind of thing. So it took a while, but I'm very happy to get to a place now where this is mostly clear, and actually getting this shelf was something that kind of really helped in that, because I think with fragrances you kind of want them to be accessible, but having them just kind of elevated off of here kind of, I think, just helps to make them feel like separate, and also helps to keep this clear. These are two of my favorite art pieces that I have here. This one here is a black and white photo of Nina Simone, and it's actually just a page from a book. I just really love Nina Simone. I think she's just an absolutely incredible artist. I love her music. I love her kind of grit and the way that she kind of didn't really care. She just kind of did her own thing. And when I saw this picture, I just kind of loved the spacing of it, and I kind of thought, what if I got that framed? And so I went to this framers in Dalston called We Are Facility, who I'd seen on Instagram did like really creative things with framing, and I said, you know, it's a bit weird, but I'd quite like to frame a page from this book. And they actually suggested keeping this kind of negative state. They actually suggested keeping this kind of negative space as part of the framing, and I think that was actually such an inspired decision. So she's up there as a kind of reminder for me every day. And then this piece is a new edition, which is also framed by the same framers, and is a sketch from an artist that I'd admired. One of my favourite things to do is to kind of follow the artists that I like on Instagram, and then when they have a studio sale, buy then. So this was just a little sketch that I had for ages actually. I probably had this for almost a year before I took it to the framers. And then again, they kind of suggested the unexpectedness of this kind of chocolate brown mount and this kind of chrome square frame, which I absolutely loved, and nothing's really changed much in this since I kind of got this shelf and Nina up, but actually this feels like the kind of only thing that earns its place amongst that. So it's just kind of propped up because it's something that I might like to move around. And I quite like having pieces of art like that, you know, kind of don't necessarily have to be on the wall, but have this kind of, you know, portable quality to them as well. So you can kind of move them around and kind of change your space as you go along. And then finally, we have this little trinket dish, which I bought in New York when I was there. I thought it was like the most beautiful and sweet thing I'd ever seen. It's actually quite an impractical trinket dish, I think, because I never want to put anything on it because I think it just looks so gorgeous as they are. It's got little fortune cookies on it, and then the kind of little memos here, and it says life will give you lemons on it. But yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It's made by Pot Lady. I presume she's based in the States, so I can't buy anything else from her, but yeah, I absolutely love it, and it's always nice to buy things when you're away, I think, because then you kind of remember that holiday and you remember that kind of experience when you look at it back at home. So that lives on there to remind me of my time in New York. I think my favourite space is probably my hallway. I have an absolutely tiny hallway, and I really didn't think that I would be able to do anything with it. Like, you know, when I had my Google Doc with all my different, you know, rooms and, like, you know, little ideas for them, I did not have a hallway one. It was just a kind of, you know, space. And I think I kind of realised that the hallway is so important because it's the first thing that you see when you come into the home. And I read somewhere that your kind of sense of comfortableness in a space is kind of decided within 10 seconds about how it makes you feel. And obviously, you know, in this house, the hallway is the first thing that you noticed. And so I kind of then thought, okay, well, what can I do with this? And I wouldn't really say I had kind of any big plans with it or any kind of vision. It kind of just happened piece by piece. And I think it just, the way it catches the light because of the kind of all the doors that are coming off it is kind of really special. When I kind of wake up in the morning, open my bedroom door, kind of come out, and there's kind of slithers of lights coming through from all of the different rooms. I think it just makes the home kind of feel really inviting, and just like a kind of has created a bit of like a heart to the space that I didn't even really realise I could have. So this is my hallway. As I said, it's my unintentional favourite space in the house. As you can see, it's quite small, but I've still managed to kind of get, you know, some art in, and like this table was an absolute revelation. I didn't think that I was going to have space to have a kind of console table or anything like that, and then realising that I could get something custom. I got this made on Etsy that's kind of so narrow so it doesn't kind of take out any more space, but just kind of provides a surface, and I think something for your eye to draw onto when you kind of enter the space. Fun fact that because this is actually flush against the wall, and as I said, I have curved skirting boards, when I put this up and I first bought it and I put it flat on the floor, it actually stuck out at an angle because of the way that the flooring is. So I've actually had to nail it to the wall. And actually, if you got kind of any kind of leveler or anything, you would see that it's actually wonky where it's actually been glued to the wall. But you can't tell, it does the job. These here, and then above it here I have a mirror. I have this wavy golden mirror, which I actually absolutely love. This was a sample that I saw at a secondhand furniture. It was a kind of showroom of secondhand designers, and fun fact is that I actually didn't see it on the day because the person that was selling it was upstairs, but I was kind of following them all on Instagram afterwards, and she kind of posted some pictures of some of the things she had for sale on the day, and I saw this mirror and I thought, I can't believe I didn't see that. So I kind of messaged her and I said, is this still available? Can I buy it? And very kindly, she shipped it to me and I bought it. So that was a kind of happy accident. And I've recently kind of acquired these wall sconces that have gone next to it. I've loved wall sconces for ages because I just feel like they're so decadent, and having candles in them and all of that kind of thing, like it just feels so opulent, which is obviously lovely to kind of have in a hallway. I actually found these again through a secondhand seller, and I thought, oh, I really like those. Maybe I could find something similar for a bit less. And so I took an image and I I took a screenshot and I Google image searched it, and I actually found the exact same ones on eBay for about 1/10 of the price. So Google image search is your friend. And so I very happily added them to my basket. And when they arrived, they actually, in the box with the wall sconces, and the seller had also sent a teddy bear. And I was very confused because I didn't know if that was a mistake. So I messaged her and I said, thank you for the wall sconces. You know, should I send the teddy bear back to you, or you know, was that a mistake? And she just replied and said, the teddy bear, that was to keep the sconces warm. Enjoy. And then I think she said happy Valentine's Day, because I think it was Valentine's Day, which is not the answer that I was expecting. Yeah, so I also acquired a teddy bear at the same time. I think probably the most distinctive thing about my hallway is the fact that all of the doors are different colours, and that took quite a long time before I did that, and quite a lot of kind of reassuring myself that if I hated it, I could just repaint them white again. I basically saw a Pinterest image of doors being painted different colours, and I just really loved how kind of unexpected and vibrant it was. I was originally, you know, just going all white and trying to keep it kind of feel quite like minimal and kind of peaceful, so that then each room could kind of have its own personality. But I just kept thinking, what if I painted all the doors different colours? Wouldn't that be fun? So I started with the kitchen because I don't actually have a door here. There wasn't a door when I arrived, and I thought about putting one in, but I thought it's quite nice that the kitchen is just so accessible, and you know, it doesn't take up any additional space. So I felt like I could start with this because this was like the safest option, and so I went for this kind of soft red colour, and I was quite nervous about this as well because, as I mentioned when I was in the kitchen, I feel like all of the elements do something quite different design-wise. So I thought, I'm not really sure about kind of what adding in another colour is going to do to that. But I then learned about unexpected red theory, which is the idea that if you have a pop of red anywhere, it kind of works and it adds something. So I thought, you know, let's test this theory. And so, yeah, I painted this red. And I didn't like it for a really long time. I kind of did it and I thought, I'm not sure. And then it kind of eventually grew on me. And then once that worked, that kind of made the other doors feel a bit white in comparison. And so the kind of idea of coming up with all of the different colours kind of started to take hold. And I decided, I couldn't decide for a really long time what colours to go for, because I wanted it to feel like fun, but I didn't want it to feel overwhelming. I wanted it to feel bright, but I didn't want it to feel overstimulating. I wanted it to feel calm, but I didn't want it to feel boring. And so actually this came about because a paint company got in contact with me through my TikTok, and they said, we're launching this new range of paints, and would you like to try any? And I looked at the colours, and I think the fact that they were part of a range kind of instantly felt like they were almost kind of designed to go together, or they were designed to kind of counterpoint against each other. So I said, well, I'd love you to send me the samples. And then they sent me the samples, and I kind of was putting different samples up on different doors and kind of moving them around. And there was only 6 colours in the range, and obviously I've got 5 doors, so I was gonna use most of them if I did commit to it. And I think, yeah, credit to them that the kind of colours worked so well together, and I was able to kind of, you know, find colours that kind of sat well next to each other and complemented, but also kind of counterpointed. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. I think it's brought so much life to the space. It's kind of unexpected. I think it feels really inviting. And I haven't got bored of it either, which I thought I really was going to. And now when I look at the photos of all of the doors being white, I think, you know, it just looks so dull in comparison. So yeah, after being, you know, quite reticent and thinking that I wanted a really minimal hallway, we've now ended up with every single door being a different colour. I should probably shout out this piece because my mum did this. I've had this piece for a really long time. I've tried to take it to kind of as many flats as I've lived in. My mum has always loved art, but I think it was when I was growing up that she decided that she was going to do her art A-level. And so this was one of the pieces that she did for her art A-level, and it kind of lived in our home in a cupboard for a really long time when I was growing up, and she kind of had it, and she got it framed as part of the course and all of that kind of stuff, but she never really put it up anywhere. And I think it was when I was in my final year of university, I kind of saw it and I said to her, can I take it? And she went, oh, are you sure you want that? And I said, yeah, I do, of course I do. And she's been with me ever since. So yeah, that makes me very happy that I have a little original piece of work that she did in my home as well. This is my key holder, which is probably one of my favourite things in the entire flat. I found this at a second-hand fair, and I was looking at it for a long time, mostly because I didn't know what it was. And I was kind of looking at it, and I kind of saw that it had this kind of dipped tray, and it said please on it, and it had these kind of holes here, and I was kind of looking at it for ages. And then I said to the seller, do you know what this was? And they said they think it was either a kind of change collection at a church, or a kind of ashtray at a theatre. And obviously being within the world of theatre, that was kind of really exciting to me. And so I said to my mum, oh, can I use this as a kind of key holder, do you think? And she was saying, oh yeah, because you know it's got the holes there and that kind of thing. So yeah, I bought it, and it's super unique, and I kind of love that it's so practical, but has like a kind of unexpected, you know, history. It's kind of, you look at it, you don't really know what it was used for. This lettering here was initially really chipped, but I have a friend who's a prop maker, and I don't even know how she got the colour match right, but she basically, she re-lettered it for me. So kind of, and she put brass, you know, she polished it up and everything like that to kind of restore it to its glory. So yeah, it's great. I think it's great to have a place to put your keys as soon as you come in, because that means that, you know, you don't lose them. I think it's really important to keep a tidy home, to have like homes for things, to know exactly where something's going to go. And obviously this is a tiny bit of wall, and it just fits perfectly. So there's a kind of happy accident that it fits so perfectly there. But yeah, I absolutely love it. I think home to me is a feeling. I think it's a feeling that you just hope that not only yourself but other people experience coming in. I think it's creating a space where it feels like you can relax, that you want to be, that you want to spend time, that can feel inspiring, that can feel calming. I think it's I think we often don't realise how much our environment can affect us until we kind of get into a space that either challenges us or makes us relax. And so I think that home to me is definitely cultivating that space, however it is, that kind of just makes you come in the door and kind of just breathe out.
On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're bringing you inside Hannah Doll's Barbie paradise. Nestled in Los Angeles, Hannah's home is a pink dreamland filled with funky 80s memorabilia and Golden Girls-esque decor, including a carousel horse fondly named Priscilla. You can't help but have rose-colored glasses once inside. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Hannah. Welcome to my LA pink life-size dollhouse. Come on in. Hi, I'm Hannah Doll, and this is my pink life-size dollhouse in Los Angeles that I created. Almost everything is pink inside this place. I love pink. That's definitely like my favorite color, will always be the base. Although I do love different colors and I love to experiment with all the colors. I love pastels, anything that really screams Barbie. Could be kind of any color, but pink is the best color, of course. The inspiration for this specific space that I designed really was to build kind of this life-size fantasy dollhouse that I really wanted to incorporate my last name into, Doll, which is spelled D-A-H-L. And the inspiration kind of came from my childhood and wanting to really just like tap into healing my inner child and diving back into like nostalgia, because I really love nostalgic time periods and anything from the past. Like vintage Barbie was one of the main inspirations for this space. So yeah, I really just wanted to create a life-size dollhouse that kind of told my story and shared a bit of my personality through design. I love thrifting, antique hunting. I love vintage furniture. I find a lot of my pieces at estate sales, thrift stores, antique stores, Facebook Marketplace, Etsy, eBay, OfferUp, all the fun reselling apps. I love to source secondhand. That's like one of my favorite things to do, is find older style pieces of furniture that really aren't made anymore these days. And they just are so different and unique. Like you can't just go online and search on like Wayfair, like, oh, like pink velvet dining chairs. Like there's something about the older style of furniture that I just really love that is so unique that I gravitate towards. And something that this space and creating this specific dollhouse that kind of made me realize is I love to find, even if it doesn't necessarily have like the color that I love on the piece of fabric or like a pattern, I love to like reupholster them and make them more so me and give them character. Yeah, so anything vintage and antique is kind of what this space is filled with. Almost everything in here is secondhand. So now we're in the living room. This is kind of the front entrance of the dollhouse. And this is where I relax, come to read books, and yeah, I've kind of created this room very pink and whimsical. A lot of the objects in here are vintage and antiques. I found this vintage heart stool that I literally was obsessed with, and I actually reupholstered it in this fabulous pink velvet. It's so cute. It has that like kitschy Barbie element to it that I just loved. This photo album is actually, I kind of collect them. It's weird. I like gravitate towards finding them at the antique stores, but I think this is from the 80s. I love these so much. My mom used to make these like vintage photo albums for me and my sister growing up. So this kind of gave me that like nostalgic memory of my mom. And yeah, just a little personal touch. So the curtains that I designed, I really wanted to give off this like royal princess meets bubblegum Barbie vibe. And I kind of made them with like the 80s in mind, just like the ruffles and these like little valances. But I love how they just like frame this beautiful view of the courtyard. They're so fun and just like giving that 80s Barbie vibe. And then these chairs also that I found, they very much resemble, to me, weirdly, Pee-wee's Playhouse a little bit, which my mom, I don't know if I mentioned yet, but my mother designed the set of Pee-wee's Playhouse back in the 1980s. And these kind of gave like the talking Pee-wee's Playhouse chair energy that I was like, whoa, they feel very like nostalgic and childlike and animated. But I just love this whole like little moment over here. It's kind of like a little peaceful view into the courtyard. Makes you feel like a princess. And over here we have Princess Priscilla, my little vintage carousel horse. She's so cute. I found her at an antique store about a year ago. I stopped by one of my favorites in Southern Orange County, and she was just like standing at the front of the store, and right as I walked in, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have her. She's perfect. So fun. My mom told me a story of how after I sent her a picture of this, she was like, oh my gosh, like you have to get that. When I was younger, she would go to her friend's house for prom photos before prom. And she says that their parents would always make them take photos by the weird carousel horse at the front door. And she's like, you have to get that. It reminds me of that. And I'm like, I know, something about her is just so like whimsical and funny. But yeah, I thought that was super just fun. So this hutch is from the 1980s. It's one of the most unique vintage pieces I've ever seen in my life. A girl that sells vintage home decor and furniture actually reached out to me when I first found this place and was moving in. She said, oh my gosh, I found this piece that like I feel like belongs in your new place. And she sent me a photo of this hutch, and I was like, I need it. It's so cool. It gives like vintage Mattel Barbie space age meets Pee-wee's Playhouse. Like the shapes of it are just so cool. And yeah, it came straight to my dollhouse. I love it so much because it's just so unique and it lights up. It kind of is like the nostalgic like disco champagne and candy bar. I've kind of just placed all my like vintage cups and little decorative pieces here. I have some little fake cakes that I love to like collect. Some friends have made some cakes too for this little candy bar here. This gal made these specific ones. I found her on Etsy, and she has a store and custom makes these by hand and adds like little flower and pearl details. And I feel like one of like the most like biggest inspirations I have is like candy and frosting and cakes and just any kind of whimsical food. And I just love that they're fake so they last forever. But these are some of the Barbies that I collect. I actually, I got this one for my 27th birthday that I had here, the first year I moved into the dollhouse. My girlfriend customized this Barbie doll with the tattoos that I have. There's a little bee on the back of this arm, which I have right here. And then on this arm it says all my loving, which I have right here. Thought that was so cute. I love like personal touches on things. A lot of the furniture that I've collected and found and curated really resembles Golden Girls, and I get that a lot. People are like, oh my gosh, this brings me back to watching that show. I'm like, oh, I just love like feeling like you're in like a nostalgic part of like your life, something that gives you that sense of old from before, like the past. One of my favorite pieces that I found was actually this sofa. When I first moved in, I was looking for a sofa that would fit on this wall, and it was taking me so long to find because I was like, I want to find something really unique. And I found this sofa online on Facebook Marketplace. It was originally orange with white polka dots. And I was like, okay, I love the shape. The shape just has this cool, like inviting, like it's almost hugging you. I feel like there's just like so many different shape features to it that I loved. but the fabric was like, okay, I gotta go, I gotta do something about this. And yeah, I found this fabric that has these little bows and roses, and this was one of the first things that I actually reupholstered and started my whole reupholstering journey. And I just felt like this fabric felt so me, and I loved the character in it. And yeah, it's just kind of the place where I love to relax and kind of take in the whole living room and read books. So I get that question a lot. I love pink. It's favorite color, base color for life, but I do wear different colors. I feel like I've been on this like, it's crazy because when you do live in an all pink space, you tend to gravitate towards like matching your home, and that's just something I love to do, is like dress up on theme to things. So for a while I was wearing like all pink all the time, but I'm kind of in this like self-discovery portion of my life where I want to dress up in different colors, and kind of like Barbie, she wears different colors, but pink's always her base. It's fun to like experiment, and like black pops so well in here, and white and purple. So love pink, but open to all the colors. My story of what I do, before the pandemic, I actually went to school for interior design. That was my major. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in interior design in 2018 from SDSU. I worked at an interior design firm, and I kind of fell out of love with interior design just for a little bit, kind of during the pandemic when I was feeling a little lost and wasn't inspired anymore. I was like, what do I want to do? I don't know, something just didn't feel right at the time. And I started to, during the pandemic, just collecting vintage home decor and rearranging it, doing little picnics and tea parties outside. And I started to sell some of the pieces that I was arranging and making little vignettes and creating little worlds out of. People started to gain an interest in the products that I found. And I started selling them. I kind of had like a vintage home decor selling business. And it kind of bloomed into picking up like Instagram jobs with content creation. I am a part-time freelance social media manager. I make content for brands. I collaborate with artists and would do photo shoots. And once I came to this place, it kind of just all flourished and so many different things happened. So I do a lot of different creative jobs at the moment, but I really do want to get back into touch with my interior design passion, and I think that's kind of the direction that I'm heading in next. And now we're entering the dining room, AKA the tea party room. This fabulous archway just like frames it so beautifully. I loved like the shape, this like round kind of arch, and how there's this really unique vintage faux nook in this wall that really like screamed to me like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. I feel like this is like the little gossip section. Like I always love to imagine back in the day, whoever lived here before me, like years and years ago, would like actually use the landline and the phone and make some calls and have some gossip time. But yeah, I found a lot of the pieces in this dining room. It's weird, like the dining table is this beautiful vintage 80s lacquered dining table, and it's in the shape almost of the same archway that I thought was like so cool, how things kind of just like fell into place here. But yeah, I really wanted to design it as this like Alice in Wonderland tea party, shabby chic Barbie dining area. And this is kind of probably one of my favorite rooms. I feel like it's where you have dinner with friends, you drink wine or champagne with friends, and light the candles and make it just like a very memorable experience in here. I always feel like the dining room or the room that you eat in with your family and friends is kind of the most memorable, that you create all those memories in. I found all the little details in here that had like little flowers, and wanted to mimic that with like the flowers and some of the decorative pieces and the teacups. And I think my favorite pieces in here would be these pink velvet dining chairs. I actually found these at an estate sale before I even found this apartment. I was living with my parents in Orange County, and I was looking for an apartment in LA, but I hadn't quite found the one yet. And funny story, I found an estate sale that had these dining room chairs and my bedroom set, which I'll show you in just a little bit. I saw them at an estate sale in Florida, out of the state, across the country, and like it was happening in like 3 days. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never found anything like these pieces before. They're so unique and beautiful, and I'm so inspired. I have to go get them. I don't have anywhere to put them, but I just know that it's like my purpose in life is to get these pieces right now. So I actually packed everything up, coordinated moving trucks. Within like 3 days, we made it over to Florida, secured the furniture, and within that time that I had arranged to get the furniture from Florida back to California, I was like, okay, I have 1 month to find this apartment to put everything in because I don't know where it's gonna go. So it was my motivating factor to find a place and settle in. And yeah, they all ended up here, and I just felt like they fit this room so perfectly. So the chandelier actually came with the place. I decided one night, I think it was before my birthday party, I was kind of decorating with these like faux flowers and pearls. And a friend came over and we just started placing the flowers and draping the pearls over the chandelier and just like going crazy at it. And it really like became this like art piece that I love to look at. It just felt like everything kind of makes sense, like all the little details are everywhere. I've always loved Barbie ever since I was a little kid. I loved miniatures more so. I had this fascination with like little dolls and little mini animals. I don't know if you remember Calico Critters. I was obsessed with. I had a whole Calico Critter dollhouse, a Barbie dollhouse. I love to like collect like the furniture pieces and just like move them around little rooms. And I think it was just like a little fantasy thing for me as a little girl. And as I grew up, I loved to kind of take that and utilize it into my own life and start rearranging my own furniture pieces and painting my walls different colors as a little kid, like experimenting with different styles and colors my whole life, and just realizing the idea of like a dollhouse and being a doll, you can be anything you want to be, just like Barbie, and you can arrange your furniture in any way you want to and pick out pieces that embody you and represent kind of just like your own fantasy fairy tale. And the pink continues into the kitchen. Over here, this is what I love to call my little fairy tale kitchen. It's tiny, but it gives like very enchanting fairy tale vibes. Like I loved just the like old charm of these windows and these cabinets. It feels like it's straight out of a storybook fairy tale. And these curtains, I really like wanted to bring in the like princess bubblegum 80s style in here. So designing these curtains was super fun. They're very like voluptuous. I have multiple fake cakes in here. The fake cakes continue too. I have this adorable one. So it's actually a cake clock. This girl makes them and she sells them on Etsy. I found this and was like, oh my gosh, this is so like Barbie Alice in Wonderland tea party. It's so cute. And the little lace details on it. Anything cake, lace, pearls, flowers, in love with. And of course had to have all pink Smeg appliances. I love, love, love the retro feel of them. They're so cool. Like it feels very 50s like space age. My dream is to have a pink Smeg fridge. I like would love to have like a complete kitchen just filled with all pink Smeg or pink appliances. And then over here, I made this cute little press for champagne art piece. I love to just like imagine when you press this button, someone just like pops out with a glass of champagne. It's like the royal princess treatment of your fairy tale. And then over here, we have this adorable, this is like one of the architectural features that I loved about this place. It's like this old little nook with these little tiny shelves. And so I decided to display some of my vintage little teacups and trinkets. I actually have some of these mugs that my cousin, another doll, she makes these. And she made these custom ones for my shop when I used to sell vintage home decor. So I've kind of just displayed them here along with some other little miniature things. My miniature infatuation. Yeah, this is my little tea section of the kitchen. And I also have this like adorable vintage secretary desk that I've kind of, when I was doing a lot of photo shoots here, I would kind of hang out over here and open this up and do some work in here. It like just makes you feel like you're like back in the day, like at a desk instead of like sitting on the couch on your phone. You feel more official at this little charming section. And now the star of the house is the bedroom. This is my favorite room in this dollhouse. It's kind of like where my crazy imagination came to life. I feel like I wanted to feel like a little kid in this room again, kind of like at your grandma's house with the pink carpet. It just feels so nostalgic. Like this giant teddy bear, I named her Honey. This is Honey. She is one of my favorite toys here. She's just so cute. It makes you feel like you're a little doll in like your life-size dollhouse. Had to have a giant teddy bear. Same with a giant bow over the bed. I thought adding a bow above your bed would be so fun. You feel like a little kid again. I just love incorporating like the same elements kind of consistently throughout the house. So one giant bow to top everything off was super fun. Over on my bed, we have another animal. This is Marie. She's a little cat. She also has a little bow on her. Found her at an estate sale. So she's quite the older one out of the animals, but yeah, I love to collect life-size animals, fake ones. But this bedroom furniture set is actually the pink bedroom set that I found in Florida when I went to those estate sales I was mentioning earlier with the pink velvet dining chairs. I saw this bedroom set and instantly thought of vintage Mattel Barbie furniture. I actually collect like the Barbie furniture, and it just felt very like space age, retro, plastic with the lacquer. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so Barbie, I need it. And it all kind of fit in this room perfectly. Like came with those two nightstands, the bed, this amazing armoire. It's like very Golden Girls. Loved it all. The vanity over here, I love this like princess moment. It feels like you're getting ready to go to a ball or just getting ready to take your photos back in the day. I feel like this is where you come do your makeup, you do your hair. It's just very like nostalgic. Like I wanted it to feel very, almost like you're in like a princess castle. This TV I actually found, it's vintage from the 1980s. It still kind of works. It turns on. Takes a second. It's so fun. I'm obsessed, and it's pink, so had to get it. It doesn't play anything. If it had an antenna, I think you could maybe actually get it fixed. I haven't done that yet, but I think if you put an antenna in it, it should work. But yeah, this is the only TV I have in this house. I don't actually have any big TVs, which is why my boyfriend could never live here. But yeah, I usually watch TV from my laptop, so this is more so a prop, but it's so cool and unique. I just love it. It literally feels like it's from the 1980s, so it gives you that nostalgic feeling. This is kind of my creative expression space. A lot of photo shoots happen here, so it's hard to really like fully live in with someone else when it has to be kind of like picture perfect at all times. He loves the space. He thinks it's so cool and is so proud and supportive. But it's kind of like my big pink toy. One of my favorite pieces of clothing in this room is actually this robe that I got. It really match the energy of the room. It has these amazing pink fluffy sleeves, and it just feels very like old Hollywood glam Madonna. This is like what I'll wear if I'm getting ready. It's so fun. Makes you feel like you're back in like a boudoir day. Yeah, I love like the pink satin. It just kind of feels like it has the same style as the vanity. Like it's very boudoir princess, old Hollywood glam. A lot of people will come in here and their eyes kind of just open up and pop and get so large. And I love like seeing people's facial expressions when they walk in here, because this isn't like your ordinary home that seems, you know, livable, like a regular environment with white walls and really modern furniture, which I do appreciate and love. This is more of like a fantasy fairy tale land that kind of, I love to give inspiration and people just a little glimpse into a creative outlet, something that inspires other people and makes them feel like they're experiencing something unusual and different. But a lot of people have pretty positive, whimsical, crazy reactions like, oh my gosh, like this is so pink. What I love the most about this space is that I feel always inspired in it. And I feel like, in a weird way, sharing my personal style has created this community that I didn't really expect to happen with just sharing it with other people and inviting other people into my space to kind of see my imagination and my designs in real life. People have just opened up to me and have been inspired when they come in here and they go, wow, like this is bringing me back to my childhood. And like they'll just tell me stories of how like they haven't been feeling inspired, and this will like tap into that like void or something that they've been feeling. And that really made me just fall in love with design and sharing like a little creative world with other people. Is just being able to relate and make that connection. So this is the bathroom, still incorporating the pink, but it has this beautiful pop of yellow with this vintage tile that came with it. I just love that it still had the original character of the 1920s, and it just pops so well with the pink. I feel like it's like a Barbie dream bathroom. And I wanted to put like a little grandma chic pink toilet seat cover on the toilet. It feels so nostalgic and just like you're in like a 1980s magazine of like a pink carpeted bathroom from back in the day. Yeah, and then over here I made these custom curtains that just really felt like added the Princess Barbie touch to this space. And yeah, this is where I get ready and just feel like a little doll in this bathroom. A little home decor DIY in an apartment rental, renter friendly. There's actually this like blue and green floral tile underneath these pink stickers. They're actually stick-on tiles. I found a gal on Etsy that custom makes these. Any custom color, custom sizes, you give her the dimensions, she'll make it. And I wanted to cover them in pink because I felt like the blue and green was really pretty, but it just didn't feel quite right. I had to incorporate some kind of pink in here. So I covered all of those tiles with these pink stickers, and they just come off. So whenever you're ready to take them off, you just peel them off. Renter-friendly hack. Home means somewhere that you feel comfortable in and that you're inspired by, and you create memories in.
Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you to Toronto to meet Alexandra Gator, a home decor expert who connects with millions through her home makeover videos on YouTube. Alexandra makes design accessible for renters and homeowners alike and believes everyone deserves to live in a beautiful space that feels like home, no matter their budget. Alexandra's own home is full of character, DIY projects, and a lot of pink. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
Hey Homeworthy, my name's Alexandra. Welcome to my home in Toronto. Come on in. Hi, I'm Alexandra Gator. I am from Toronto, Canada, and I am a home decor YouTuber. So I actually go into people's spaces, usually rentals, usually small spaces, and make them over with my team. The makeovers are completely gifted, and the goal is really to show my YouTube audience that it's possible to live in a beautiful space no matter what your decorating experience is, no matter your budget. I am also the author of a coffee table book called Own Your Space, where I walk through really simple, easy ways you can make your rental feel like home. So I live in a rental apartment within an old Victorian home. This home was actually built in the 1800s, so it's a heritage home here in Toronto. I personally love living in an older home because it's filled with character. And when we moved in, it was really a blank slate, and I changed a lot, and thankfully have landlords who were just so game for me to do whatever I wanted. I know people are always curious, like, what's your design style, or what design styles are you drawn to? And to be honest, I'm always stumped on that question because I feel like I love so many different styles. And something that I have really learned is to just buy what I love instead of trying to match a specific style. But if I had to narrow it down, I would say I love eclectic design, I love boho design, and I really love color. With a neutral base. So lots of colorful accessories, and I love bright spaces, like Scandi spaces. I love the brightness, light wood tones. So I guess to sum it up, I would say I love an eclectic design style and lots of color. Welcome to my living room. This is the space my partner and I spend most of our time in, I would say, and it also was the hardest room to design. I could not get this space right. I actually made it over 3 different times, but I feel like it's finally in a space where I'm happy with it, I love it, and it's just really, really comfortable. I think one of the main features of this living room and this entire home is the iconic stained glass. It lets in rainbows in the afternoon, which is so cool. Like the sun pours in and then there's these rainbow shapes on our wall. Another thing is the molding. I love all the molding in this space, and I really kind of leaned into that when I was making over this wall. This wall was so difficult to get right because it always just felt really blank, really open. I didn't know if I should paint it a color, but I landed on this peel and stick molding actually from a brand called Luxe Architectural. They sell these panels that you can just stick on the wall. I painted them the same color as the wall. They look like they've always been here. And I feel like it really complements the original molding in the home, like again, adding that character. And it filled the wall a lot. Even though it's a simple detail, I felt like it really completed the space. I added 2 squiggle wall sconces from my favorite lighting retailer called Mitzi. And this TV, it's actually the frame TV from Samsung. It's supposed to look like a piece of art on your wall, so it's not this black box staring at me constantly. I love it. Underneath, this is a piece I've actually brought with me apartment to apartment. I will actually add that a lot of these pieces I've kind of collected over time, and that's what I love about home decor and rentals. You can invest in these pieces that you bring with you space to space. So this bench was white at one point, then it was actually black. It's actually a custom stain that my handyman Graham came up with for me. He mixed it custom for me, and I love the color. I think a lot of people stray away from open media consoles, but this one has a shelf at the back, so all my cords are actually shoved behind there, so it looks seamless, which is really important for me. But I just love having a long space to decorate. I change up the decor around here all the time, putting my favorite ceramics and candles on display.
And then underneath I just have my coffee table books of the moment that I'm reading. I love how much color the accessories add to this space. So instead of one large coffee table, I opted for 2 side tables side by side. A coffee table is going to be quite large in here. It is a smaller space. So these are from Just Be Woodsy, and they're actually made from fallen trees in Toronto, where I live. So it really feels like we have a piece of Toronto in our home. I've kind of just put them together to create a coffee table vibe. We can move them if we want to, which is really handy. The sofa was an interesting dilemma for me because I really have always wanted a pink sofa. I had a pink velvet sofa in my old apartment, but the more I thought about it and the more this room came together, I really love how the furniture and like the textiles are more neutral. And then I have the option to bring in color through like my lighting, my accessories, this accent chair. So I wanted this sofa to just be like comfy, large, a really deep, comfy sofa. We could relax in at the end of the night. And having that neutral color really helps just balance everything out. So this stained glass is kind of a standalone art piece within itself. I'm pretty sure it was original to the home. Like I think there's been some sort of stained glass window there since this home was built. Obviously the glass has been changed and repaired over time. But I didn't really want to like match anything to the stained glass. I wanted it to be its own moment. So instead, with my own art, I really framed things in neutral frames, big white mats, which I love. And I've just framed like a couple of photographs that I've taken over the years, some fabric to add texture, a downloadable piece of art, which is one of my favorite ways to add art into your space, buying prints online on Etsy, downloading them and literally printing them at home on my printer. My partner's mom is actually an artist, so she has gifted us a lot of her work. There's these 3 little prints over here with this green color, which I love, and I thought it paired really nicely with our tree. Honestly, when it comes to art, I just buy what I love. If I see an artist that I really love on Instagram, I'll follow them for a while and maybe buy one of their pieces. And art is just something I love to collect, but I don't want anyone to think you have to like buy art all at once. It's taken me a while to collect pieces in my home that mean something to me. So then off of our living room is our dining room. I used our sofa to kind of create a divide between the 2 spaces. I think the hero piece in our dining room is definitely this DIY cabinet that Graham, my handyman, and I made together. This is actually an IKEA Billy bookcase with some cut down dresser drawers in here. So there's tons of storage. We keep all of our liquor, wine glasses in here. This piece definitely gets so much use during the holidays, and I love how it brings so much height into the space, like your eye goes upward, and it just makes the space feel a lot bigger, honestly. I also added a little light in here. You'll notice around my home, I have a lot of table lamps. I never turn the big overhead lights on. I come home and I just turn on all the table lamps because I love mood lighting, and I love how it makes me feel just like calmer and more cozy in my space. So I love that addition within this cabinet. For our dining table, I opted for something round. I always love using a round table in a tiny space. I think it makes the space feel more open. I've added a couple mismatched chairs, and behind us, this fireplace, I know for a fact, was original to the home. It's not working. It was brought up from the downstairs. So it's really just a fireplace frame, but again, it adds so much character. If I could have it my way, I maybe would paint it, but I also feel like a piece like this is original and I would feel kind of bad painting it. So I like the pop of the dark wood. I think it adds something to the space. And again, just leaning into the character of it all. So ideally, I would have fresh flowers on every surface in my home at all times, but that's just not possible. So instead, I've opted for these beautiful taper candles. I've put them in these different candle holders. They're varying heights. And again, I love just playing with color when it comes to accessories. It gives me the ability to change up my style if I ever get bored, which, you know, being someone who loves home decor. I'm changing things constantly. But that's really where I kind of focus my energy, bringing in these cute little touches of decor that I can change up at any time. We love to host, and even though we live in a smaller space, I love how it's all open concept. So sometimes people are on the sofa chit-chatting, other people are sitting at the table. We have our bar cabinet doors open, and it really feels like a free-flowing space where everyone can connect and chat with each other. Okay, before we move into the kitchen, I want to show you one of my favorite IKEA hacks. This is so handy if you have cats like I do. So I have 2 cats, Lottie and Boo. Even though this apartment is 2 levels, there's not a ton of storage or like anywhere to put a litter box without it being out in the open. So I hacked this Ivar cabinet from IKEA, and I put some cane webbing on the front, and it's literally where my cat's litter box is. All of their accessories, like their food and extra litter, are in the shelf on top. And then there's a little opening on the side, and that's where they go in and out. And it just keeps everything concealed. It keeps it mess-free, and like no one knows that it's hidden in here when they come over. I've decorated the top to just make it look like a little console. But yeah, I love this piece, and it's really, really easy to do, even if you are a DIY beginner. One really easy way you can also update your rental is by changing out your outlet covers. These are actually my own. I sell them on my website. I have a whole shop where you can buy like textiles. I have pom-pom slippers, and I source a lot of things from Morocco, specifically Marrakesh. I work really closely with artisans there. But these are made in our very own workshop. So my handyman Graham makes these, and you can paint them yourself. So we sell like DIY outlet covers. They're primed, ready to paint. You can paint them any color, but then we also update the colors every season and every launch. So yeah, I obviously replace like every outlet in my home with these, and I love how it just gives it like a cute little pop of decor. This art piece is definitely one of my favorites. It's by one of my favorite artists, Emily Keating Snyder. She actually has a piece of art on the front cover of my coffee table book, and her art's just really special to me. She paints on canvas and then uses different color thread to add texture to the art. So I have a lot of pieces of hers around my house. I guess this is a good opportunity to just note that yes, I have a lot of pink accents in my home. Pink is my favorite color to decorate with. Took a while to get my partner Noah on board, but he honestly doesn't mind. I feel like he's kind of used to the pink now. He was resistant at first, but I think it really just works together, and yeah, pink is like my signature color. So I love that there's just pops of it around our house. Okay, so now let's move into the kitchen. Can't wait to show you this space. This room was actually entirely different when we moved in. There were cabinets everywhere, and they were wood toned. They weren't my favorite. The kitchen wasn't really my style, but I knew it had really, really good bones to work with. The only thing that is kind of original to when we moved in is this island, which I love. It's a really functional piece, but it's like the last DIY that I haven't completed on my to-do list. I really want to add tile to the entire island, like tile the legs, tile the back of it, cover up all the white on the island, and yeah, add a pop of texture and color with tile. But that's a future project. The projects I did accomplish in here, I think the biggest change was I took out all the upper cabinets that were here and instead added these open shelves. I love open shelving. I have a lot of ceramic pieces that I love that I wanted to have on display, which is why I made that choice to take those cabinets down. And honestly, it brightened up the whole space. I added this tile all along the back. This is from Morocco, and it's irregular tile, so there's a lot of texture. I went with a neutral tile color because this is, at the end of the day, a rental, and I knew that my landlords maybe wouldn't appreciate me tiling the whole backsplash with like pink tile, and that's not everyone's taste, but I really think the neutral tile works. I took it almost all the way to the ceiling, and I just, again, love the texture it brings into the space. It adds a lot of warmth as well. I know not everyone can, retile their backsplash. Something I do a lot in my makeovers in other people's homes is use peel and stick backsplash. I actually used peel and stick tile backsplash in my old apartment and loved it. So that's a really great alternative if you are stuck with outdated tile. You literally just peel it and stick it over existing tile and it looks like brand new ceramic tile. So a great option if you're a renter. The other major change I made in here was taking off all the cabinet fronts, all the drawer fronts, and painting them a new color. I went with this color. It's called Pigeon by Flair & Ball. It's actually the same color as the cat litter box cabinet and that accent wall to really tie in the two spaces together. I just love how it's like a neutral green. And again, this is a rental, so I didn't want to, paint the cabinet fronts pink. And I think green is like a great neutral color for anyone to really enjoy. I also changed all the knobs and the pulls. A really easy way in a rental, even if you don't want to paint your cabinets, change out the knobs. I've had these specific knobs for years, carried them with me apartment to apartment. They're from CB2 and I love the shape of them and I love the brass detailing. I also carried the paint color to this bench. I sit in this bench so much during the summer. I love to read here. I love to work on my computer. I reupholstered the cushions that were here. I'm kind of itching to change this fabric eventually as well, but I think it works for now, this cute little gingham print. And yeah, our kitchen is also where people hang out when we host. We have these two stools by the island, and it's just a really nice space to cook in and to host in. I'm a big advocate for table lamps in kitchens. I think they just add like the cutest little coziest glow. So I have one in our kitchen and I turn it on all the time, which I love. This closet could be a pantry, but we actually store our like vacuum, our cleaning supplies in here. And I thrifted this door for $100. Someone was selling it for $100. I was like, this is a steal. It was original to their home. And I installed it. I added this frosted glass so you can't see through. There was kind of like bifolding doors here before. And again, I just think it makes such a statement. And I really just, again, wanted to honor the character that was already here in this home and bring in something that just filled it with character even more. Okay, so now that you've seen the kitchen, I'm thinking we should head upstairs. I'll show you our bedroom. But first, let's talk about this staircase. So when we moved in, this staircase was covered in low pile gray carpet. I have no idea how long it had been here. What I did know is that it needed to be removed like right away. It was the first thing I think we removed because I could not stand this gray carpet. I actually installed this runner by myself. Really easy to do. Again, if you're a beginner DIYer, it was a really approachable project. I found this runner on Wayfair. I knew my cats were gonna scratch it, which they have. So I wanted something that was a little cheap and cheerful, but still had that hit of pink. And honestly, I just kind of embrace the fact that my home is going to feel lived in. I do have two cats, they're gonna scratch the furniture. So it doesn't bother me too much. And again, I love that I went for something that wasn't super expensive. It is a rental and I knew it was gonna get a lot of wear and tear, but it works really well and I love the color and pattern. Okay, so this little hallway and landing gets so much light because of the skylight. I wanted to capitalize on that and add a cute little gallery wall. These are all hung with command strips. I didn't want to put too many holes in the walls. And it also means that I can change up the photographs really easily if I want to. I actually used a service called Poster Jack here in Canada where I just uploaded photos from my phone and then they framed them in these beautiful square frames. And yeah, I love it up here. It's like a little moment within itself. Okay, our bedroom is just around the corner. Let's head in. Come on in. So while I love color and pattern and lots of texture, the goal for this room was really to just keep it as minimal and simple as possible. I find like a lot of clutter is not relaxing to me, especially in a bedroom. So I really just kept the design super, super simple. We don't have a rug down here. We love the old hardwood floors. They like creak really nicely. They're original. We really just wanted the hardwood floors to like have their moment. I did add a Moroccan runner beside the bed to bring in a little cozy element. But yeah, other than that, we left it pretty bare, which again was the goal. And it feels very serene in here. Like at night, I just come in here, I know it's time to sleep, and it relaxes my mind when there's not a lot of stuff around me. These wardrobes were here when we moved in. They're IKEA wardrobes. I painted them. I feel like a lot of people don't realize you can do this, but I gave them a good sand. I used a shellac primer, and then I painted them this neutral color. I also added trim on the bottom and on the sides so they look more built in. Before they were just kind of floating here. And then I added these really, really statement handles from Etsy, actually. I found them on Etsy. And yeah, I love how they add a bit of color, they add a little bit of texture, but again, still keeping it really neutral. So for the lighting in here, I added this pendant from Lulu and Georgia. The pendant was like not in the center of the room, not centered to the bed at least, so I just used a little cup hook to swag it so it hangs over the bed. Again, I love how it's neutral but textured. And then for our side table lights, these lights are actually really cool. They're from Casper, and you flip them over, they turn on, and then they dim themselves for a 45-minute period of time. So when they're all the way down, you know it's time to go to sleep, which I think is really great. And then you just flip them over to turn them off. So a bit of a quirk of this room is that this little alcove will only fit just a bed. We didn't have room for closed storage side tables, or at least side tables that matched each other. So we went for a king size bed. We just thought we would maximize the space for more mattress space. And instead I have this little floating table for books. And then underneath we have drawers. So really great for like extra linens, any other storage we need. And like our outlets and plugs where we charge our phone are also under there. So it's, again, keeping it really serene, not a lot of clutter, which I love. I love changing up my bedding. Sometimes it's colored, sometimes it's just like today, all white. But a little hack I have to make your bed feel extra cozy, especially during the colder months, is to add a second duvet or comforter on the foot of your bed. So this is in kind of a waffle material, and I have linen bedding, and I just love how cozy it looks. That's the goal, is for my bed to always just feel cozy and inviting. I have Brooklinen sheets on the bed. I love Brooklinen. I work with them often. Also have their pillows, which are like the comfiest pillows ever. And yeah, that's our cozy bed that I actually am kind of dying to jump into right now. I had seen this art print floating around the internet for a while, and it still remains to be one of my favorite pieces of art. I love it. So I love that it's just like above our bed, centered on the wall. And then I painted the accent wall a color called Sulking Room Pink by Farrow & Ball. It's one of my most favorite pink colors because it kind of skews like brown. It has purpley, browny undertones. And again, calm, neutral, but still that hit of pink, which I love. On this side of the bed is this little drawer from IKEA, actually. I stained it. I added some fluting on the front and these squiggle knobs. This is where I keep all my PJs. I keep my diffuser and my humidifier and my clock on top. So even though I don't have like a side table necessarily right beside my bed, it still really works for me. And honestly, when you're working in a small, quirky space, you just gotta find the solutions that work for you. This wood squiggle art is by an artist named Katie Gong. It was the first real like piece of art I think I ever bought. I love it. It's a piece of wood that she actually kind of heats up and then bends. Her art is so cool, and I love it just kind of tucked away here. And it just reminds me of like, yeah, buying my first piece of art and buying something that I just really loved that was interesting and unique. It used to be above our bed, but I think it works really well here. I always want optimal darkness when I sleep, so I got blackout curtains, and then I was on the hunt for a blackout Roman shade, which I think that people often think have to be custom. I found this company called 2 Pages. Their shades are really affordable and they make a lot of sizes. So you can usually find a size to fit your window. You don't need to make them custom. They do have a custom option if you want to go that way. But they come in so many colors and again, are pretty affordable. And I use them in a lot of my makeovers. So we love 2 pages and yeah, it gets very dark in here at night, which is the goal. Okay, that's my bedroom. We're gonna let Boo take her nap and I'm gonna move out to the hallway to show you our laundry closet. So we are lucky enough to have laundry in our apartment. And this was such a cool project because it is a laundry closet. It had doors on it at one point, but they broke or fell off or something. And for a while, it was just this big open space. And I knew I had to do something because it was quite an eyesore. It also wasn't really functional. Before the makeover, there was just the washer and dryer stacked on top of each other. And there was all this dead space around it. So I actually made this little corner over. I was really struck by the fact that we had this closet that was just being so underutilized when it came to storage. And so these shelves, bringing them all the way to the ceiling, just maximize all that vertical wall space and now make it that we have like an extra closet where we can store things. Right at the top, we store extra towels, extra toilet paper. All of my laundry supplies are right here. They're easily accessible. And it is high up there, but I just use a little step stool and get the things I need. And we're living in a small space, so things have to be compact. And yeah, I love this laundry corner now. Like it was such an eyesore before, and now I actually enjoy doing laundry on the weekend. I also love using interesting containers or baskets to store things. I think it's just fun to make like a moment out of function, and you can totally make function stylish, which is what I've tried to do on these shelves here with all my laundry supplies. Okay, that's the laundry closet. Let's head into the bathroom. So the one space in our home that's actually quite large is our bathroom. I grew up as a kid living with, my family of 4, and our bathroom wasn't even half the size of this. So this room just feels so nice. I love that we have a clawfoot tub, original to the home. There's so much storage. And yeah, I just feel really lucky to have this really big space in the city. This space is covered in tile. I wouldn't necessarily choose this tile if it was my home that I owned. So I've just tried to really work around it. And a lot of people in rentals can't change tile, especially when there's a lot of it. I also couldn't cover it with peel and stick because it's just such a large surface area. So instead I kind of just embraced it and have made the changes that I think are the most impactful. I changed the wall sconces, added a really interesting mirror. I added plants where I could, accessories, a really fun patterned shower curtain, and yeah, just kind of changed the things that I thought would make the most impact. So if you live in a rental like me and you don't love the tile in your bathroom, just bring in really cute accessories and it'll quickly feel like yours. The one tile change I did make in here was I tiled over the backsplash that was here before with the leftover tile from our kitchen. So it's kind of nice little tie-in. And fun fact, you can actually tile over existing tile, which I didn't realize. But yeah, that is the one like major change I made in the bathroom, which really works. Okay, I have one last room to show you in my home. It's our entryway, and it is much, much smaller than the bathroom. Let's go. Okay, so on our way down to the entryway, there's this little landing, and this space always stumped me because it was really dark and didn't really serve a purpose. So I added a mirror. I love mirrors in small spaces, dark spaces especially, because they bounce off all that natural light. I painted it pink, and yeah, it's just a really like happy moment when you walk up the stairs. So let's head down there to the entryway. Come on down. An image I had saved on Pinterest for years was of Hilary Duff's home, specifically her mismatched runners going up her staircase. So I thought I would try it in my own entryway. I found all of these runners on Etsy. They were on a major sale, and I just kind of found ones that looked great together, and it now looks like this one long continuous runner. I love Moroccan rugs for high traffic areas because they just settle really well and they're easy to clean, which I also love. So when you walk in, I love that you see this hit of color and pattern, and it also looks really warm too. So we actually lived with this entryway, like not designed, not made over, for a couple years. And I'm so glad we did, because I really understood the exact functional pieces we needed when I actually did make it over. I knew exactly what places we needed to put things. And I am so happy with this makeover because it's not only stylish, but it is so functional, and it is so easy to keep organized because everything has its place. So starting with this kind of built-in entryway system that my handyman helped me create. So before we had hooks on the wall, our coats were getting piled on top of each other. Couldn't find what I was looking for ever. So now it's like a closet. It's open. We couldn't have it closed. There wasn't enough space, but I think this works. And we still have room to add more jackets, which I love. Everything that I grab and go every day, so like my purses, our winter accessories, are in easy reach. Before, everything was really high up on a shelf there, and we never grabbed the things we needed every day. So now I love that they're in easy reach. Up there is all the off-season items, things like winter skates and just things we don't grab for often. You may notice that the color on the walls is the same as in our bedroom, sulking room pink. I really wanted to lean into the darkness of this entryway and just make it feel intentional and warm, which this color really evokes. It evokes warmth, and it really matches well with the stair runner colors as well. This is my other cat, Lottie. She's finally made her appearance. She loves sleeping in the entryway. I guess that just is a nod to how warm and cozy it is down here. She loves this shoe cabinet. This is one of her spots where she sleeps in. It's really cute. This shoe cabinet is probably my most favorite IKEA piece. I use this in so many makeovers, and I've brought this specific cabinet with me apartment to apartment. It holds so many shoes, but it's so narrow, so it fits in these like little nooks and crannies. I added a custom top, same color as the bench upstairs. I added knobs, same as in the kitchen, so it all ties together. My handyman, Graham, made these custom little sunglass holders, and all of our tote bags for like groceries and stuff are in there. So as you can see, like it flows really nicely, and that's just a testament to sometimes you have to really live in a space before you know exactly what it needs to be functional. But yeah, I'm in love with this space, not only because it's easy to grab and go, but because it's really beautiful. Okay, one last piece of storage. My partner is an avid skier, and because we don't have a garage or any other storage place, his skis had to somehow fit down here. And I was like, how are we gonna fit 2 pairs of full-size skis in our tiny entryway? So I found these wall-mounted ski racks on Etsy, and I love how they just make use of vertical wall space, and they're not taking up our precious floor space that we don't have a lot of in this entryway. A really great product that has quite literally changed the function of this entryway. Okay, well that's it from my home. I really hope you enjoyed the tour, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.